thing called life. Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic morning this morning, and hopefully you're coming off of a great weekend. I'm happy to be here with you, and I appreciate you for being here with us here on the many channels that you could find Wake Up Call all around the country and the world on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Appreciate your patience today as we got set and ready to go for you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. A lot of stuff to get into today, and of course, it is a Monday. And with that being a Monday, you know that it is time for DT and Murphy. Murph and I are going to be discussing with you the college football scene through 10 weeks. And college football plays on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday is what we've been seeing. And they just haven't played on Sundays and Mondays here, but they did earlier on in the season. So college football this season has played on every single day of the week, and they currently play on 5 out of 7 days. So you get plenty of college football spread throughout. And then we'll get into NFL Week 9 and what our thoughts are about the NFL at this point in the season. There are 17 weeks, so we are, believe it or not, at the midpoint of the NFL regular season for 2024-25, so we'll get into that. And then we'll have some sports card show and tell, proudly presented by GG Cards and Breaks, our sports and trading card shop of choice on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, right off of Teal Ave. So, a lot of awesome things coming up here. I am wearing my Venom shirt, and I have my Venom glass, because I'm ready to talk about some things, and I'm ready to get a little fiery. So, with that being said, there's something that needs to be talked about first, but before we get there, I'm going to bring Murph on the show. Picture in picture with Murphalation for the nation, Mr. Murphy. How we doing?
We're doing well. It was a nice weekend that I just had. I hope you had a nice one as well.
Yeah, the weekend was good. Very, very eventful weekend. I was at the Dome for the comeback victory by the Syracuse Orange over the Virginia Tech Hokies, where they outscored them after being down 21-3. They came back, won the game 38-31. And in the second half plus overtime, they outscored Virginia Tech 35-17 in their response to the Hokies. Hokies were up 14-3 at the half. Syracuse 35-17 after halftime, and won the game by a touchdown. LaQuint Allen's touchdown, which he had 3 of in the game, 2 1-yard leaping into the end zone touchdowns, followed by their overtime drive, which took 2 plays: a shovel pass to LaQuint Allen from Kyle McCord for 16 yards, and a 9-yard run where he barreled and stayed forward and fell in to the end zone. So I want to start off this morning by talking about the Syracuse Orange. The Syracuse Orange are 6-2. They are bowl eligible. They will be going to a bowl game. No matter what happens, they're bowling. They keep winning, they will send me down to a Southern Bowl. That would be nice. So, and
that time of year.
Yeah, I have been to multiple Syracuse Bowls, and I have been to more cold weather than warm weather once. So I've been to Yankee Stadium for all 3 of the Pinstripe Bowls. And I've been to the Camping World Stadium on the best season that they've had in at least 2 decades, which was back in 2018 when they played at the Camping World Bowl against their longtime rival, the West Virginia Mountaineers, and they beat West Virginia for the 4th straight time. So, I mean, that rivalry has been on the side of Syracuse, but apparently there's a lot of trash that's talked going into that game by West Virginia, and talking to the guys about it. I mean, that game is very personal. Even though they're not in the same conference and they haven't been in the Big East together in a while, that's a very personal game for Syracuse players when they know the history of that rivalry between the two. So, you know, I've seen Syracuse do some good things in recent history. But this season, to be 6-2, to have a winning record in the ACC, which now has 17 teams with the addition of Stanford, Cal, and SMU, and for them to be in the top 6 of 17. The top 6. That means that they're up there in that upper area. There's the upper echelon of Miami and SMU and Clemson, and then there's that next group, which they are currently a part of. They have 4 games to go, and the way that they played this last game, Fran Brown said it, and student-athletes said it. Fadil Diggs said it in our one-on-one conversation, the star defensive end on Syracuse that came from Texas A&M. This team in the past would have quit. I don't like that word. It's hard for me to say it. But they said a team down 21-3 would have been like, all right, we're probably going to lose. Syracuse didn't do that. They didn't lose hope. They didn't lose focus. They responded in a way that shook the dome like I haven't seen in a long time. It's exciting to see this team play. It's exciting to see Fran Brown's energy. It's exciting to see Kyle McCord and, Danny's made mistakes and this and that and whatever. And he's also led the nation in multiple quarterback categories and been in the top 4 in the nation over 130 FBS schools in 4 categories. LaQuint Allen has played out of his mind. We have seen Aronde Gadsden get involved offensively, Dan Villari get involved, Trevor Pena, Jackson Meeks, Umari Hatcher, Zeed Haynes. Defensively, Marlo Wax is back. What did he do in his return to the Dome? He told me when he got hurt in the Dome, he said, I thought that was it. He comes back to the Dome and is responsible for at least 2 sacks and the forced fumble that ended overtime. Fadil Diggs has been a phenom on the defensive line. Justin Barron has stepped in wherever they've needed him to at defensive back and at linebacker. The kicking game's gotten a little bit better here. Jackson Kennedy came through. Jaden O came through. Brady Denneberg, my guy, still doing kickoffs. This Syracuse team, 6-2 on a Monday morning in November. So, the hate, I ain't trying to hear that. Kyle McCord is trash? Okay. And there were people when Fran Brown lost to Stanford at the end of the game on a 4th and 8 play. 4th and 9 maybe. There were people that said that Fran Brown should be fired. There's people that think Kyle McCord's a terrible quarterback. My response to that is everybody's entitled to an opinion. Everyone is entitled to have an opinion, even if those opinions are not based in any frame of reality. The Syracuse Orange, though imperfect, as we all are, though flawed at times, though having moments of strife and moments of adversity, and some caused by themselves, some bad decision-making, and some things just happen, in a terrible game against Pittsburgh a week ago. This Syracuse Orange team has never let a loss beat them twice. And this Syracuse Orange team is above 500 this late in the season. And like I said to Isaac, a 6-2 Syracuse team is not something that you hear a lot. But we're talking about it today. So, hate all you want, question all you want, break down Stanford and Pitt all you want. But let me tell you something. Pitt blew out Syracuse in Pitt, and then Pitt went to SMU and got treated like how they treated Syracuse this past weekend. SMU was up 48-11 with time still on the clock. So the reality is this Syracuse team is going to a bowl game. This Syracuse team is going to send guys to the NFL. This Syracuse team's got some positive energy behind it. And I was hype in the Dome. I'm excited to see it. It's remarkable to see the work that they've put in. And I've been around this team long enough to know it feels different in a good way. So, from your eyes, Murph, what have you seen?
Before I get to that, real quick, you mentioned the SMU Pitt game. Did you see that Bryson DeChambeau was there and he had the U.S. Open trophy with him?
I did not. No, I didn't see that. That was awesome.
Apparently, he came on. They brought him onto the field with a cart, and he comes off. He's got the U.S. Open trophy with him. He's drinking out of it, and that was cool. Bryson being a an alum of SMU. But going back to Syracuse, looking back at last week against Pitt, seeing Kyle McCord throw 5 interceptions, and he was probably right to take criticism for that. But good on him for being able to bounce back and have a good game against Virginia Tech, and not giving up at any point.
Yeah.
Also, funny enough, the first game this year he has not thrown for 300 yards, which is a very crazy stat.
Yeah.
But he's looked better. Obviously last week was not a very good showing, but he's looked better. They're a team that I'm surprised is not getting any votes from the AP to go into the, to be in the top 25. But they're deep. Yeah. They've got weapons. They've got a deep roster. This is a team that could very easily make a run towards the top of the ACC and compete with these teams. Pitt blew them out in part because McCord threw 5 interceptions last week. That's not going to happen every time you play Pitt. That happened the one time that you played them.
Yeah.
But watching from afar, I can't help but think that this team's got a chance to maybe win 8 or 9 games. It is entirely possible for that to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look in depth at what they have left, Boston College, Cal, UConn.
Yeah. Miami.
I'll give them losing to Miami. That's fine. But they could very easily win those next 3 games. And all of a sudden, you're finishing the season 9-3. 9-3, you're going somewhere in the South for a bowl game. Realistically, 9-3, maybe not necessarily 9-3 with the schedule, but 9-3 could have been knocking on the door of the playoff at the beginning of the year. They will be ranked if they finish the season 9-3. And if they are not, there's something wrong with the College Football Playoff Committee. 100%.
Well, we already know that.
But we knew that already. I mean, in their ACC and their bias against the ACC now, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, clearly because Miami's still number 4. Yeah. Miami is still number 4.
Yeah.
Ohio State and Georgia both have 1 loss, and they're not ranked high, and Miami's not ranked higher than them.
Yeah.
I don't get it. BYU is not ranked higher?
Yeah.
I mean, who else am I missing here? So BYU rankings. Here we go.
Army, they like begrudgingly put them at 18. So.
Yeah. I mean, you got Indiana, BYU, and Miami in the top 10, undefeated. I can understand leaving Georgia and Ohio State above the latter 2.
Yeah.
Or above Miami and BYU. I can understand Texas and Penn State. I can understand them ahead of everybody, behind everybody except Tennessee. I think they should be 7 and 8 instead of 8 and 9. But Miami should be number 2. Ohio State looked awful against Penn State. And we're about to get into this game in a minute, but they got bailed out by the refs. They got bailed out by the fact that Penn State ran the same damn play 3 consecutive times on the goal line in the 4th quarter, and then decided to throw it on 4th down from the 1. They got lucky on that interception at the end of the first half. And literally, the guy was not trying to catch it. He just happened to catch it. But Ohio State did not look good in that game. Penn State made some mental mistakes and executed had a Very poor game plan. That is on their offensive coaching staff. Penn State is a better team than Ohio State. But Penn State executed a horrible game plan. Their defense played well enough to win, but their offense couldn't score. And their offense couldn't score because the play calling was atrocious. End of the first half, the play they throw the interception. Why are you not running on first down when you still have a timeout? You have 16 seconds left.
Yeah.
You still have a timeout. You're at the 3. Why? Actually, no, you're at the 1, I think. Why would you not run the ball on first down?
No.
You still have a timeout. If you don't get it, you call the timeout. You still got 2 shots at the end zone. I don't know what the heck they were doing there. Maybe they were thinking throw on first down, then try to run it on second down. If they don't get it, then take the timeout. That's just a really poor job by Penn State's offensive coordinator and just by their offensive team in general. Drew Aller is the reason they were still in that game. Running the ball, throwing the ball. They couldn't get the tight end involved almost at all, and I'm blanking on his name. I'll find it in a second.
All right. Well, let me hit with something here because you talked about the rankings, and we're going to get into this as we go forward here. But the frustration that I have again is it's the reality of the Big Ten. Penn State did not. They came in ranked in the top 4. They're not a top 4 team.
I still think they're better than Ohio State. They just didn't play like it.
But here's the thing, though. You look at this and you say, okay, they beat West Virginia unranked. They beat Bowling Green unranked. They beat Kent State unranked. They beat Illinois, who was ranked at the time, but we've seen how Illinois has fallen. Illinois is not in the top 25 anymore. We have seen UCLA, or they played UCLA unranked, USC unranked, Wisconsin unranked. And they play Ohio State, and they lose to Ohio State. Ohio State, on their side, they got nothing either. A team that, again, is considered a top 4 team every year, copy and paste. It's like they don't even care about the schedule or anybody they play. Ohio State coming in, people say, well, this is a top 4 matchup between these two teams. No, it's not. It's a top 4, they shouldn't be there matchup. These two teams are being told to you that they're this good. But what has Ohio State done this year? Akron unranked, Western Michigan unranked, Marshall unranked, Michigan State unranked, Iowa unranked. They lost to ranked Oregon.
By 1 at Oregon.
Right, but still, they lost the game. Because if this was
the
Syracuse,
number 1 team in the country, they lost by 1 at Oregon.
Nobody would care, though. Nobody would care. If Syracuse, when Clemson lost to Georgia and got blown out, they almost fell out of the top 25. Their response since then has been to blow out every single team until they just lost their game against Louisville at home in Death Valley. But that game against Oregon, if you're Penn State, if you're Ohio State, if you're Michigan, excuses will be made for you. Well, you only lost by 1. It's a quality loss. If Syracuse lost that game, it doesn't matter if it's 1 point. If Clemson lost that game, if Florida lost that game, well, maybe Florida would get it because they're in the SEC. But there are many. If Coastal Carolina played Oregon to a 1-point loss, they wouldn't even sniff the top 15. So,
but
yes,
they'd move a lot. They'd move up the rankings quite a bit.
Maybe.
They would. You know they would.
I don't think they would. I think that there is a place where, if you look at the rankings right now, and you look at where teams are, Boise State is being regarded as, like, the Mountain West is being regarded as better than the American Athletic, which to me is laughable because who is in the Mountain West besides Boise State? But you look at the American Athletic where Memphis has done good things this year. You look at Army is undefeated. You look at Navy, who has the 1 loss but undefeated in the American Athletic Conference. Their Eastern Carolina has East Carolina has faltered, but that was another team that was coming up here and doing good things. but Boise State is being regarded as higher than SMU because the ACC has been disrespected now for 3 years. And when I look at this ranker and I see that Georgia is 7-1, but Georgia
looked awful against Florida on Saturday.
And Georgia has looked bad against Florida. They've looked bad against Kentucky. But this is where I'm saying the argument comes. Georgia can look bad. Georgia can almost lose. Georgia can lose.
Miami should be number 2. That's the bottom line.
But you look at Ohio State and you say, what in the hell have they done of merit? The best thing they've done all season is almost beat Oregon. And almost doesn't count. Whether you lose by 1 or you lose by 40.
Let's use that same argument for Boise State. Same thing. Almost beat Oregon on the road. Lost by 3. And they're ranked 12th.
Yeah.
Out of the Mountain West. And you know how much they hate to put the group of 5 teams in the top 10.
And they didn't. And they haven't. And they won't put Boise State up there. They have a 2-loss Alabama team ahead of them. And people forget this because, Notre Dame is 7-1. Again, they lost to Northern Illinois. If Syracuse lost to Northern Illinois, a 7-1 Syracuse wouldn't be in the top 25. But when Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois, they're like, well, we got to. There's teams that get an argument, and there's teams that get argument for. Ohio State is where they are in the rankings because they were going to be there regardless. Because if you show up every single year in the top 4 at the beginning of the season, every year. They're saying every year your quarterback changes after a few years, you're still a top 4 team. These guys left, you're still a top. I mean, there's something to be said, and I pay attention to those teams that are ranked every single year up there. Georgia's up there, but Georgia wins. Ohio State's up there. Look at Michigan. Once again, they told us Michigan was a top 5 team, top 10 team. Michigan has 4 losses. Michigan is a non-factor.
You're not going to put the reigning national champion as an unranked team to start the season.
You don't have to put them unranked, but you most certainly don't put a team in the top 4 that lost their head coach and their quarterback. That doesn't make any sense. That's literally putting them there based on what they've done in the past. And that's not
that's how you have to do the rankings.
You can't. They don't do that with Clemson.
I mean, look at Florida State.
They don't do that with Clemson.
Florida State's got 1 win.
And think about Florida State. Florida State was ranked way too high. They were ranked way too high. And where were they? They were 10. They weren't 4. They weren't 1. Florida State, if they base everything on the year before, and that's how they do the preseason rankings, Florida State should have been in the top 5. At bare minimum, they should have been 5. But they're not.
We know how much the College Football Playoff Committee hates them, so.
Right.
Not surprising that they weren't.
But that's the committee. The committee does not like the ACC. They jerk off the Big Ten. And the SEC is somebody that gets ranked high, but they can actually defend where they are ranked. Now, Miami has had good seasons in recent history under other coaches. They had good seasons under Mark Richt, and they faltered at the end. And they knocked themselves out, and they didn't get in the college football playoff. They made mistakes late in the season.
But, I mean, you could argue that with Miami, they haven't played anybody either. They haven't played a ranked opponent all year.
So when you look at Miami, and this is what it comes down to when you look at these games, and I want to go to Miami's schedule here for a second.
Their best win was Louisville on the road by a touchdown.
Who was
they were not ranked at the time. They are ranked now.
Right, and Louisville was ranked as high as 12 this season and was talked about being in the college football playoff. Correct. Miami,
that's their best win.
And this is my thing with Miami, because I'm not going to sit here and defend Miami in a way that would be a double standard in not defending Ohio State and Penn State. Miami is a team. They played Florida, Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida, Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, who wasn't ranked at the time, Florida State, and Duke. None of those teams are ranked. They will not play a ranked team all season. They play Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse. That is why
unless Syracuse is ranked by then, but
right.
I mean, they could be.
But Georgia Tech has been ranked, Louisville has been ranked, Virginia Tech has been ranked. So it's not that none of these teams are ranked at any point this season. But when you look at Miami, you have not heard come out of my mouth that this team is a great team and that like this is definitely a team that's going to go here and definitely a team that's going to go there and da 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 da. I am looking at this Miami team and I'm waiting to see, because if you can blow it now, listen, the game against South Florida for the second year in a row brought Alabama to a low-scoring game, and with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it was a one-possession game between Alabama and South Florida. So to go to South Florida and to blow them out, that to me was a win that I circled for Miami because of how South Florida played Alabama. And then I look at, obviously the Florida game. At that point, Florida was not. Florida.
We don't have to talk about that.
Right? They've gotten better this year. They have gotten better. And then
since like week 3,
right.
Napier still needs to be fired, but that's besides the point.
And then you look at the Louisville game, and that was a game where the teams combined to score 97 points. So, in my opinion, is this Miami team for real? For real? I mean, we'll see. We know that they can score. We know that they can beat really bad teams, but when they play better teams like Virginia Tech, they have to score almost 40, and they win by 4. Against Cal, who hasn't won a game in the ACC, they had to come back on the road, and they won by 1 point, 39-38. And they had to and Louisville, to beat them, they had to score 52 over 45. Florida State's a terrible team. And Duke, 53-31. So, I mean, they're allowing a lot of points. And a team like that, I wonder when that's going to run out. When you have an off moment.
Yeah.
When somebody gets covered better.
Win a shootout.
Right. So they've been winning shootouts. And I said it about Notre Dame years ago. And like I said, I'm not going to use an argument and I'm not going to use an argument for one and then use it against another. I was very critical of Notre Dame in the season where they won a bunch of games, but they barely beat Ball State, which Miami played this year and beat 62-0. And they barely beat Vanderbilt that year when Vanderbilt was at the bottom of the SEC. So, yes, do I look at Notre Dame and say that they absolutely, positively should not be in the top 10? Yes. They lost to an unranked team, and not just an unranked team. They lost to an unranked team that was probably 80th in the country, 90th in the country, 75th in the country. That loss would have murdered Clemson. That loss would have murdered certain teams out there in the SEC that aren't regarded as high. But when it comes to Notre Dame, they can lose to Northern Illinois.
That Northern Illinois team is, by the way, 1-3 in their own conference.
Right. So you look at that, and that would have counted against teams. When I look around this country and I look at that, strictly the Northern Illinois loss by Notre Dame, that loss to anybody in the American would have put them out of any chance of the college football playoff. If that loss happened to Conference USA, they'd be out of it. If that loss happened to the MAC, they'd be out. They're within the MAC. But if that loss happens here to a team, let's say Western Michigan's undefeated, but they lose to Northern Illinois, who's terrible in their conference, then that would count against them. It would count against Boise State. It would count against Colorado State. It would count against UNLV. That Northern Illinois loss, if it happened to App State, if it happened to Coastal Carolina, if it happened to Miami, if it happened to a good Florida State team, if it happened to Clemson, if it happened to Virginia Tech, if it happened to Syracuse, if it happened to Louisville, would have called them out. My argument that I'm making is you can lose to Northern Illinois if you're in the Big Ten. You can lose to Northern Illinois if you're Notre Dame. Because to tell us that this game between
You couldn't lose to Northern Illinois in the Big Ten.
You can lose to Northern Illinois.
You can't tell me that if Ohio State loses to Northern Illinois that they'd still be ranked in the top 5.
If Ohio State lost to Northern Illinois and almost beat Oregon, they would this Ohio State team, if they had 2 losses, they would still have.
They would be ranked behind Alabama.
They would have them. No, they wouldn't. They would have them somewhere.
Yeah, they would.
They would not.
would.
They would not.
They would be ranked behind
Alabama.
Alabama.
They wouldn't be behind Alabama. They would be. If you look at Ohio State and Michigan in the last, let's say, 4 years, these teams do not drop the way that other teams dropped. When you look at Penn State dropped 3 spots losing to Ohio State. They dropped from 3 to 6. You look at other teams, Clemson loses to Louisville, who's ranked again. Clemson dropped 8 spots. So, I mean, you look at how they felt. Michigan lost, then they lost again, and they're not letting them out of the top 14, top 15. Clemson lost their first game of the season and almost fell out of the top 25. They fell the largest margin, I think, of any team this season. They fell 14 spots. So, I mean, Michigan. You look at a 3-loss Michigan was still right at the 25, and they didn't want to let, when they were a 2-loss team, they didn't want to let Army in. They didn't want to let Navy in, who were both undefeated at the time. SMU has taken all season long to get to 13. They're 8-1. Their only loss this season is to the undefeated BYU team, which they lost 18-15. No one can tell me that SMU couldn't hang with Ohio State when Ohio State is playing the way that they're playing and the way that they beat Penn State. If Penn State is great, according to some people, and Ohio State beat them when they're not that good, you're telling me that an SMU team that is 8-1, who hung with BYU the way that they did, could not hang in a game with couldn't score 30 against Ohio State? This is what I'm saying. Ohio State, Penn State, it doesn't matter their quarterback, it doesn't matter their coach, it doesn't matter their DB, it doesn't matter their middle linebacker. For them to both be in the top 6 right now is to just continue to perpetuate this belief that these are 2 top 6 teams. If the playoff happened today,
they are.
They're not two. You look at Texas A&M and say that Texas A&M can't go and hang in a Penn State game or hang in an Ohio State game. That SMU can't hang in one of those games. That a 2-loss Alabama couldn't beat Penn State.
Well, that's Alabama.
But
you can't use Alabama. You can't use Alabama in that argument.
When you look
you can't.
I can use Alabama because Alabama is a team that is at 11 right. If the college football playoff happened today, there would be Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, and Penn State. A third of the college football playoff would be to the Big Ten. Georgia would make it from the SEC. Tennessee and Alabama would barely make it.
Did you say Texas?
Oh yeah, Texas would make it. So Texas, to me, when you look at
the top 12 would make it.
Right. When you look at, and then you would have one group of 5. You'd have Boise State. SMU.
Well, the thing is, the only other group of 5 team you could even consider putting in there is Army.
Right, and they're not going to do that.
And if Army loses to Navy, they're not going to put them in there.
Which is insane because Navy hasn't lost a game in the conference. But when you look at if the college football playoff happened today,
Army's going to have to play 2 games at the end of the season. Remember that.
Right. But
they're going to probably have to play Tulane, I would think. But there is also a scenario where they play Navy twice in a row.
Right.
But whoever they play in the AAC championship game, and then they got to play Navy again, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage. Now, if they win both of those games, yes, they should be in. But if they lose either one of those games, they'll get knocked out.
Well, but that's the thing. They're waiting for Army to lose so they can go, see? But they argued Michigan into the top.
Well, Army's also still got to play Notre Dame. Right. If Army beats Notre Dame
will still be in the top 25.
Notre Dame, no. Well, top 25, yes, but they will not. But they will not be in the playoff.
No, but they'll be in the top. Sure. They'll be in the top.
And
20.
If Army beats Notre Dame, and I don't know that they're going to with how good they looked against Navy. If Army beats Notre Dame, Army will probably move up to about 12. Would be my guess. And I think they would. The only team they would be behind that's got 2 losses would be Alabama.
And Notre Dame won't fall out of the top 20. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense.
They might just trade places.
But that's the thing that makes no sense. It makes no sense. A 2-loss Notre Dame team losing to a disrespected Army and to an unranked Northern Illinois will stay in the top 20.
Who also has wins against Texas A&M, who against Louisville, against Navy, against, well, they wouldn't have the USA win yet.
But you look at the 2 losses and you say, how many 2-loss teams get the love? Vanderbilt has 3 losses. They're in the top 25. Louisville has 3 losses. They're in the top 25, but they're at the bottom.
Oh, Vanderbilt's 3 losses are to Texas, Missouri. Oh, wow. Okay, one of their losses is really bad.
Right. But they
lost to Georgia State.
Right. But
that's really bad.
Right. So, but you look at Colorado, who is left for dead. They're 21. You look at Washington State, who is technically a Pac-12 team with 2 teams in the Pac-12 and no championship. Washington State is 7-1, and they're ranked 20th. They're ranked ahead of Pitt, which is stupid money there. Colorado is ranked below Washington State. Vanderbilt, even though they have 3 losses, and this is where I will argue a 3-loss team over a 1-loss team. Vanderbilt has beaten Alabama, and they beat Auburn for the first time ever in the history of their program, and they at Auburn. They've never beaten Auburn at Auburn until this past week. Washington State, who is in the Pac-12 that kind of doesn't exist right now, is ranked higher than Colorado, Pitt, Vanderbilt. That is stupid. Now, and they're only 1 spot below Clemson. That is ridiculous. And they're sniffing Army, who's 8-0. If Army beats Notre Dame,
it seems like you're arguing against a team that's arguably a group of 5 team this year.
No, what I'm saying is Washington State should not be ranked that high. Washington State should be a non-factor. Washington State, what are they? Are they independent?
They're basically in the mountain. They're basically in the Mountain West.
They're in the Mountain West. They're not in the Mountain West, but they're a Mountain West. They
are, but they're not. They have an
agreement with the Mountain. But that's what I'm saying. I'm arguing.
But it almost sounds like you're arguing against them because they're basically a group of 5 team right now.
I'm arguing against them because they have no home, they have no conference. I'm not arguing because they're a group of 5. The American Athletic Conference.
I know you're not. Just that's the way it sounds.
The American Athletic Conference has 14 schools. The Pac-12 has 2. The Pac-12 is a nothing right now. They're a total non-factor right now. But this is pushing but that's what I'm saying is Washington State is considered to be in alliance with the Mountain West, and Boise State is regarded higher than the American Athletic. And the American Athletic only has 1 team that is within this thing. And Washington State, for them to be regarded as better than Colorado, better than Kansas State, Kansas State I don't think is a factor, better than Colorado, better than Pitt, and better than Vanderbilt, that is stupid to me. I'm looking at head-to-head matchups, and I'm going, Washington State is within sniffing distance of Clemson and Army. I mean, you look at Iowa State, who hadn't lost a game until this past week, and they went to 17. They dropped significantly, but they didn't drop as far as Clemson. Iowa State dropped 6 spots. They're at number 17. Ole Miss at 7-2 is a strong team. Texas A&M at 7-2 is a strong team. What I'm saying is Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and Indiana make the college football playoff. The only team that I think has played any season of merit is Oregon. So if you're going to take out LSU, Texas A&M, SMU, maybe Boise State, Ole Miss, to me that's a disservice because the Big Ten doesn't have to play the SEC schedule. And a 2-loss Alabama, a 2-loss Texas A&M, a 2-loss LSU, a 2-loss Ole Miss, they're beaten and bruised in a good conference. I look at a 1-loss Ohio State and I say, your best thing that you can tell me is that you almost beat the number 1 team in America. Well, Vanderbilt almost beat the number 1 team in America when Texas was up there, or the number 2 team in America. They almost beat Texas. They played Texas to a 3-point game, and you know what they got for it? They got kicked out of the top 25 last week. They played a really good game against a really good team, and they lost, and they got punished. So Vanderbilt is not allowed to be in the top 25 when they lose to a really good team in the top 3. But Ohio State gets to be a top 4 team when they almost beat a really good team. That's what I'm saying. Look at the discrepancy. Vanderbilt plays Texas tough. They're out of the top 25. Ohio State plays Oregon tough. They're in the top 4. So Vandy can't be 24, but Ohio State can be 4, 3.
But Vandy was 25.
They weren't in it.
You can't move a team. You're not going to move a team up for losing. So the only place they
move
can
Ohio
go
State
is
up
down.
for losing. Ohio State
they stayed put for losing.
Ohio State doesn't, when they're playing Oregon that far back in the season, Ohio State had played literally no one. Clemson doesn't get rewarded for playing Ohio State's crap schedule. Syracuse doesn't get rewarded for that. Syracuse,
for the record, Ohio State moved down to 4.
Syracuse
from 2.
Right, they moved from 2 to 4.
So they did move down.
That's what I'm saying. They moved from 2 to 4. What is that? Does anybody else move like that? No. When Clemson lost to Georgia, again.
Texas went to 5 after losing to Georgia.
But right, because they have to make space for Penn State. That's what I'm saying.
Penn State's undefeated.
Penn State played nobody. When you and I have had this conversation and I've told you Memphis is undefeated, UCF's undefeated, Cincinnati's undefeated, your response was they didn't play a ranked team. Penn State's undefeated, they didn't play a ranked team. Indiana's undefeated.
Penn State beat a ranked team.
Indiana has not played a ranked team all season long to where they were this past week.
And that's why they're ranked 16th.
But they're ranked.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. No, they're ranked 8th. I was looking at the wrong week.
And they're ranked higher than BYU, the darling of the Big 12. They're ranked higher than Alabama. They're ranked higher than Boise State. They're ranked higher than SMU.
BYU should be ranked higher than Indiana.
I would like to see.
BYU
Indiana play a
blew
schedule.
out Kansas State.
I would love to see Indiana play a schedule. And by the way, in order for them to stay undefeated, they had to come back against an unranked Michigan State team. But
they got to play Michigan and Ohio State in their next 2 games. So if they beat those 2 teams, not as much Michigan, but if they beat Ohio State's going to drop. Indiana will be playing for the Big Ten championship against Oregon.
When you look at Michigan, a 3-loss Michigan team was barely out of the top 25. Now that they have 4 losses, there's people that will still talk about them more than they'll talk about Texas A&M, more than they'll talk about SMU, more than
it's Michigan.
Clemson.
They're the reigning national champions.
Which doesn't matter. It's a new season. It is a new season. If we're basing today's rankings on history, Syracuse is in the top 5. For the people that they've sent to the NFL, for Ernie Davis, for Floyd Little, for Jim Brown, for the fact that they were undefeated in 1959, for the fact that they were undefeated in 1987, for the fact that they defeated the number 1 team, Nebraska, that came into the Dome in 1983. Notre Dame gets it on history. Ohio State gets it on history. Penn State gets it on history. Michigan gets it on history. But we're talking about right now. And if you look at the rankings this year, last year, the year before, and the year before that, all the way back to COVID and probably before COVID, there is a consistent Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. But there is no statement as to why. And if you put a team in the top 4, it takes a long time for them to fall out of the top 25. But you put Clemson at 11, and you drop them to 24. Because they lost 1 game. And they responded by winning every other game. Ohio State by year does not play a ranked team unless it's in their conference. They don't play a tough schedule out of their conference. They just don't. Michigan this year finally played a team, and what happened? They finally played a good team. They played Texas, and what happened? They lost. You're seeing Ohio State playing Oregon now that Oregon's in the Big Ten. Look at Ohio State now. They can't hide anymore. Michigan can't hide anymore. Penn State has been. If I'm going to argue any of the 3 teams this year, I would argue Penn State. Above Michigan, obviously, and above Ohio State, I would argue Penn State. Penn State's issue, though, is that they don't win big games. They don't win.
Well, that's always been the
They
case.
don't win the marquee games. Now, and because they lost.
That's why Penn State fans don't want Franklin anymore, because he can't win a big game.
But that's the thing.
He's beaten Ohio State once in 11 years.
But because they've lost to Ohio State, now they've opened the door for the two of them to get in. Indiana, no matter what Indiana does, they never get ranked this high. And here they are as the 8th best team in the country, and I'm sorry. If Indiana had to play BYU, Alabama, Boise State, SMU, LSU, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Clemson, there's no way in hell that team gets out of there alive. But they're in the Big Ten.
The big test for them is going to be Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State and are undefeated going into the Big Ten championship, they will make the playoff. And Ohio State likely will not. But if you look closer, Indiana would play Oregon. I think Oregon probably blows them out. But if you look at that, Indiana would probably, if they beat Ohio State, Indiana immediately jumps into like the top 4, depending on what happens the rest of the way. They will jump Penn State. They will jump Texas. They will jump Ohio State. They probably won't jump Georgia unless they lose to Tennessee, because they play Tennessee this week, I think. Yes, they play Tennessee. They play Ole Miss this week. They play Ole Miss and Tennessee the next 2 weeks. That's going to be interesting. But they'll jump all those teams, and they'll be in the top 4 when they go to the Big Ten championship against Oregon. And this is also the first time in a very, very long time that the SEC is not going to have an undefeated team going to the championship game.
Yeah.
That is an interesting statistic.
But that was another.
But is that also a testament to how good the SEC is this year?
It is a testament, but see, this is where we're at. The ACC had an undefeated team in a quote-unquote power conference, and they didn't make the college football playoff last year.
We can both agree that was BS.
Right, which would have never happened to the Big Ten. It would have never happened to the SEC. And then this year, they have an undefeated Miami that has never been ranked number 1. So
I don't think they should be ranked number 1, but they should at least be ranked number 2.
But if they're going to treat, and again, I'm not going to make an argument for one and not the other. Miami hasn't played. Their schedule is not against ranked teams at the time of play. So Ohio State's isn't either, outside of Oregon. And Penn State, they beat Illinois, who's now not ranked anymore, which would be to the same case as Miami, who's played teams that were ranked at one point. So Oregon.
Oregon, you can make the argument their only real quality win is Ohio State. They beat Illinois, who was ranked, but nobody else has been ranked.
But I also look at
you
Oregon.
You can make that argument.
I look at Oregon from the factor of what they've been in the pack. But Oregon, too, to this point. Oregon has changed quarterbacks, and they stay winning. They stay consistent. They switched conferences. And I do believe that this is a factor to me. Oregon was relevant in the Pac-12. Now they're the best team in the Big Ten. SMU was relevant in the American. Now they're the one of the best teams in the ACC. So to me, that holds weight and that holds value. Oregon did not, and Oregon was also not ranked that high. Oregon was not given the Ohio State, Penn State, let me rub your shoulders and make sure you feel comfortable, baby. Oregon wasn't given that. Oregon had to prove it. Texas had to prove it.
They were ranked 3. Wait. They were ranked 3rd in week 1.
But when
they were literally ranked number 3 in week 1.
When did they get to number 1?
They got to number 1 after they beat Ohio State.
Right. Wait. Because Ohio State has that clout. What is Miami?
They were ranked 3 in the preseason. Then they dropped to 7 after week 1.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense.
My argument is that they have...
Then they dropped to 9.
Right. That's my argument, is that they...
Stayed at 9.
They have not stayed in the top 4 all season long. They have not stayed in the top 5. They have not been given excuses this whole time. Or if Oregon had lost at any point in this run, then Ohio State would be above them no matter what the hell Ohio State did, even if they didn't play each other. So,
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying about Oregon. Oregon is not getting. They might be getting some Big Ten flavor, but Oregon and see if it started today, if the college football playoff started today, and I'm also going to say this: Dylan Gabriel is their quarterback. Dylan Gabriel was relevant at Oklahoma. Look at Oklahoma without Dylan Gabriel this year. They're not a factor. Dylan Gabriel was the quarterback at UCF when UCF was trying to win their 26th game in a row.
How long ago was that now?
Dylan Gabriel was there so he was there. Mackenzie Milton got hurt. So the game that they lost to LSU
Was this 2020?
In the bowl game. No, it was before that. No, it wasn't.
So how old is Dylan Gabriel?
He's been around for a long time. Dylan Gabriel,
he's like 20. Is he like my age?
He was behind Mackenzie Milton, and then Mackenzie Milton got hurt, and that whole they lost to LSU, and that proves that they're blah blah blah. They lost to LSU having to play on the West Coast when they were a better team at the time. They lost to them by one possession, and Dylan Gabriel, it was his second game as a college football player. So I don't want to hear boo about this.
It was 2019.
Because Jalen Milroe.
He's a fifth year.
Yeah, because Jalen Milroe, let's be real.
Actually, no, he's a sixth year.
Jalen Milroe is not a great and has not been a great quarterback. But when you look at so Dylan Gabriel, because he played at UCF, they didn't even regard him at UCF as a notable quarterback. They put up a list of returning Division 1A quarterbacks, and when he returned to UCF, they didn't even put him on the list of quarterbacks around the country, which was how much respect that they gave him. Then he went to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma without him this year is terrible. Then he went to Oregon, who lost Bo Nix, and they're the number one team in the country. So Dylan Gabriel,
a lot of growth then from him.
He was good back then. It was just that people weren't paying attention because he was at UCF, and UCF's in the American.
But he was also a freshman.
And you can't like the American. He was there more than 1 year.
Dylan
Gabriel, numbers-wise, was a Heisman candidate at UCF before he went to Oklahoma and before he went to Oregon. But now that he is at Oregon, everybody wants to pretend like this is a new player that they just found. Cam Ward, mind you, he transferred into Miami. And Cam Ward didn't necessarily get...
Where did he come from?
Cam Ward came from was it Washington State? He came from a West Coast... I think it was Washington State. And I'm gonna fact check myself right now. But...
let's see. Washington State, yeah.
Yeah. So... But Cam Ward, him too... was not regarded, probably regarded more than Dylan Gabriel because he was in the Pac-12. But you look at these teams, and this is where it comes down to Oregon has almost fallen out of the top 10. They rose back up because of their work. Ohio State, Penn State, they're in the top 6. But they've played each other, and one of them lost to Oregon. That's not a good enough excuse to put them in the top 6, to put them above Tennessee, and to even put Penn State, who played nobody, above Indiana, who's also played nobody, because they're undefeated. So, if I'm Indiana, I'm going, what the hell do I have to do within my own conference? Oh, that's right.
You need to go undefeated.
Oh, that's right. I don't have a name. I don't have the name. Oh, that's right. I don't have the history. BYU is like, we were independent and disrespected. Now we're in the Big 12, and the best we can get is 9, and we're barely over Notre Dame. And I'm sorry, but Penn State and Ohio State, I want to see them play Alabama. Play Alabama with 2 losses. Play Boise State. Play Boise State's running back past 12.
He's going to win the Heisman Trophy by it. He's going to be a unanimous Heisman winner.
He had over 120 carries, over 1,200 yards, and almost 20 touchdowns with half of the season ago. This guy is insane. And he said one of the greatest things that I've ever heard come from a student athlete, or really anybody in the entertainment world. He said, I'm a Christian disguised as a running back.
I never even heard that. That's funny.
And so, But I mean, I'm going to defend the teams that deserve to be defended. And if the college football playoff happened today, having 4 Big Ten schools is BS. That's bull. That's absolute bull. Because the teams that I consider the best in the country right now, are Oregon, Texas, BYU, Tennessee, Georgia, and I would have to put Miami in there, even though I'm reluctant to give it to them because they haven't really had a matchup that I'm like, wow, that was awesome. I mean, if they blew out Louisville, then maybe I'd feel a little bit better, but they barely beat Louisville. I mean, when I look at this right now and I look at strictly matchups and I look at some of these guys, Boise State, BYU, Tennessee, who bounced back from having a loss, Georgia, Oregon, Texas. I mean, in my opinion right now, Oregon and Texas are, I would have Oregon 1, Texas 2, Georgia 3. I wouldn't be screwing around with this Ohio State 3. They're 3. Ohio State is 3. Okay. Play Oregon.
I do think Texas should be above Ohio State.
Yeah, go play Oregon again. Like, I mean, jeepers Christmas. And why are they there? Because in the first college football playoff, Ohio State beat Oregon 100 years ago. Like, what was it? How many years ago is it now? 11?
Well, the thing is, the Big Ten got some credit last year when Michigan won the national championship.
Above the credit that they already had that had to do with nothing.
Well, they got some credit from the people that think the Big Ten is terrible.
They won the college football playoff twice since its institution. Clemson has won more for the ACC. Florida State never got a chance to win a game in the college football playoff thanks to the college football playoff committee. And the SEC.
They won the last BCS, right? With Jameis?
Yeah. So the last BCS, which was
2013.
2013 was Florida State. So, yes, within the last 11 years, the ACC has won multiple with Clemson, and they won with Florida State. The SEC has won with the college football playoff with LSU, Alabama, and Georgia.
Total of 7 times?
Yeah.
Right?
And then Ohio, and then as many times as they played in it. Ohio, Pac-12 has never won one. The Big 12 has never won one. The American was only let in one time, and no other quote-unquote group of 5 has been in. And then as far as the Pac-12 has been embarrassed when they've been inside of it, and the Big 10 won the first one in 2014, Ohio State over Oregon, and then Michigan won this last one amidst being investigated by the NCAA.
Yeah.
And if Syracuse is being investigated, they wouldn't even have been able to play in it. But that's just reality.
Yeah, that was kind of weird, that whole situation last year. But, regardless, you can't. It's hard to really say that. And it's being shown off why. And I think in general, college football has been a lot more competitive this year. And I think we might only have 1 or 2 undefeated teams at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't expect Army to be undefeated. I don't expect BYU to be undefeated. Well, maybe. They're probably the more likely one out of them in Indiana. We might only have Oregon, Miami. Let's see. Oregon, Miami, BYU as the 3 undefeated teams.
So if Miami goes undefeated and Oregon goes undefeated, should Miami be 2?
Yes. I think Miami should be 2 now.
Right. But they're not. Because Ohio State's better than them, according to nobody of merit. So, and I'm sorry.
Well, but also,
I'm sorry to the people that are voting in this. I mean,
if you're going off of that logic, they've got a ranked win, 2 ranked wins, and Miami doesn't have any.
But Ohio State has a loss, and an undefeated Ohio State would be at the top. Well, I mean, they're still at the top.
It's the same reason they kept trying to put Alabama over Florida State last year.
And that's, I mean, this is the thing that it continuously doesn't make sense to me, is what does Miami have to do? And again,
Go undefeated.
Clemson has free-falled twice this year. They free-falled twice this year, more than any other conference. They have free-falled through this thing. And that shows you that the ACC doesn't get any respect. Because when Clemson lost to the number one team in the country, Georgia, they almost fell out of the top 25. If Ohio State lost to Georgia, I don't even know if they'd fall out of the top 6.
Depends on how much.
Not really.
If Clemson was in that game and they lose by 6, maybe they fall 6 spots at most. But the fact they got blown out, that definitely played a role.
But then they go and they blow out all these other teams and they rise back up and they lose to a Louisville team that
they blew out App State, they blew out NC State, they blew out Stanford, they blew out Florida State, they blew out Wake Forest. They beat Virginia Tech by double digits, and then they lost to Louisville.
Yeah.
None of those teams are, for the same reason that Miami's probably not ranked where they should be. Their wins were against, for lack of a better term, garbage.
Then why Ohio State? Why Penn State? Penn State has a ranked win over a team that's not ranked anymore. Ohio State had no ranked wins against anybody. They had a ranked loss.
But the middle teams in their conference are better. The teams in the middle of the Big Ten are better than the teams in the middle of the ACC. That's just the way it is. You don't see random ACC teams very often, and I wouldn't consider SMU to be a random ACC team. They're a team that just went to the ACC and proved that they were good enough in the American. Now they're in the ACC and they're in a better backed conference. But how often do you really see like a middling team from the ACC all of a sudden go undefeated this late in the season? You see it in the Big Ten. You're seeing it this year from Indiana. You've seen it in the past from Iowa. You've seen it from Michigan State. The teams in the middle of the Big Ten, without question, are better than the teams in the middle of the ACC. I think that's part of where they make these distinctions, right? I mean, unranked is unranked, but if you look at the teams in the middle of the conference, who they've beaten, who they've lost to, and who historically is, rising above things and everything. All right, so let's look at the teams in the middle of each of those conferences. So let's look at the ACC first.
They both have
ACC.
As far as bowl eligible teams, they have the same amount. They both have 7.
Yes. All right. So let's just say, for argument's sake, Wake Forest. Wake Forest almost smack dab in the middle of the ACC. Wake Forest against. This is an interesting one.
They're number 9.
Either Michigan or Wisconsin would be the middle of the Big Ten this year. Who would you take in that matchup? And if you're saying Wake Forest, I think you're lying to yourself.
Wake Forest, specifically Wake Forest, now?
I was kind of just picking somebody, but...
Yeah. Well, this is...
I was just going with who was in the middle.
This is how I look at Wake Forest.
I wasn't necessarily saying Wake Forest specifically. It's just like... I was just trying to say somebody in the middle of the ACC... They're smack dab in the middle.
If I'm looking at Wake Forest versus... I mean, Wisconsin can go either way. Wisconsin's a team that's really hard to bet against or bet for. But if it was Wake Forest, Michigan, I would, at the eye test, I would pick Michigan. But then I would pick Michigan. Now,
fair.
If I look at Duke... I think that they would give...
That's why I didn't say Duke.
I think they would give Wisconsin a run for their money. I think they would give Michigan a run for their money. Manny Diaz is a hell of a coach.
I think Duke's better than Wake Forest.
Right.
But I was just going off standings and everything.
Right.
But you think about that. So Duke, okay.
Duke. So
UNC.
Look at Duke though.
Would they beat either
Duke
of those
is
teams?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Duke is the 10th best team in the ACC, and I would put them against Michigan and pick them. I would put them.
Duke
against
is also
Wisconsin.
6-3. I'll give them credit for that.
Right, but we're
So
talking about the
let's
middle
just
of the road. They're 10th out of 17.
All right. Georgia Tech or NC State. Would either of those teams beat Michigan or Wisconsin?
NC State's record, as in many seasons, is not a fair look at the team that they have, and they're another team that has gone through some adversity outside of their control in recent history. So NC State, if they're playing Wisconsin, I'm picking NC State.
Okay, how about Michigan?
Honestly, this season I would say it's a toss-up. I don't think NC State is as strong as they typically are, but a Dave Doran team who sends a bunch of guys to the NFL, I would within Dave Doran's career, I think it's something ridiculous like them being an 8-win team is like a norm. So NC State against Michigan within the last 3 years, I would feel more. I would pick NC State more comfortably. I think it would be this season with them both being 5-4. I think it's a toss-up.
Now let me change the question, and I'm going to phrase it two different ways. That ACC team goes to play at the Big House, or Michigan goes to play at their place. Who has the advantage?
Well, I mean, it's a difference just sheerly in people. NC State's
110,000 crazy fans at the Big House,
but it's a difference in people because
I
NC
don't
State,
care what team you are.
Right.
You go into the Big House, that is not an easy place to play.
No, but I mean,
middle of the road teams in the ACC.
But we can argue that
their crowds aren't great.
They can argue that anywhere because NC State, consistently is a season ticket holder sellout, but their stadium's not as big. So, I mean,
well, it doesn't. I don't think the number of fans necessarily makes the difference. I think it's the atmosphere.
I think it's
you can still have a crazy good atmosphere with 70,000 people.
110 versus like a 45. I mean, you look at the dome. Now, the dome is a unique enigma, not an enigma. The dome is a unique venue in the sense of the fact that there is less than 50,000 seats with the new seating that's been put in there. However, it's enclosed.
You got the echo of being in the dome.
It's enclosed. So when 20,000 people scream at the top of their lungs, it kind of feels like 70,000 people. So
yeah,
the dome, and I've been in the dome when there's 30,000 people at a basketball game, and you can't, like, your ears get plugged. So the dome is a different space. I think Nebraska has seen, there's teams that have seen what it's like to come in there and be in that atmosphere. It's going to be interesting to see Miami in that atmosphere. But, I mean, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, the amount of fans that they have, I mean, obviously, by sheer amount alone, when you look out into the crowd, it's insane. But then I look at the atmosphere of Nippert Stadium for Cincinnati, and I had never been in that atmosphere before. And I went to a game there. I went to the American Championship there. And Cincinnati, that atmosphere was... And I've been to stadiums across the country.
Wait, do they play the AAC Championship game at home?
The AAC Championship game is the top team gets to play at home.
Oh.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the American with Cincinnati, that, like, when they're playing, like, that stadium... That atmosphere was insane. I remember being in that atmosphere. I can go right back to it. And I'm like, man, Syracuse needs to step their game up because of what I experienced at Cincinnati. Cincinnati had traditional stuff that they were doing. Like, you couldn't help but dance with the band. And, and Florida State, I give Florida State a lot of credit. They have tradition that they do before the game. Outside the stadium, inside the stadium. Like, there's experiences that I have had being around the country that are different. The Liberty Bowl, the sheer, like, making of it in Memphis, that's really unique. The bounce house at UCF is nuts. You talk about loudness and you talk about home field advantage. The bounce house is called the bounce house for a reason. When the fans get excited in the stands at UCF, when they start stamping, when they get up and they stomp their feet, the press box at UCF moves like a simulator. Like you can literally look at the pull and you see us go forward and backward. We rock inside of the press box when the fans go off. So, I mean, the bounce house that's a difficult place to play. I don't care who you are. So, I mean,
it's the loud atmospheres that you want. But at the same time, if you look at a stadium that's got, let's just say, 60,000 fans versus a stadium that's got 110,000 fans.
Yeah.
Could 110,000 be louder? Sure. However, if the baseball postseason is any indication, think about how loud Philadelphia was in the World Series in 2022.
Yeah.
Think about how loud Citi Field got during the Mets playoff run this year. Think about how loud Yankee Stadium was when the Yankees are good. These stadiums don't hold 50,000 fans.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention Dodger Stadium because it's the highest capacity stadium in Major League Baseball now. I think 57,000 or something like that.
But that's why
stadiums are only 40-something thousand now.
That's why
they are crazy loud.
Right. I mean, it depends.
There's no reason why a small stadium couldn't get that loud.
It ultimately depends on your fan base. And when it comes down to it,
that I think is part of the problem.
I mean, but the NC State has a vibrant fan base. The problem with Syracuse is that, and I mean, this is my hometown, and I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, the fans give up on this team so fast. And I mean, to the point where we already knew they got blown out by Pitt, and we were like, okay, so there's going to be less people at the Virginia. We were talking about it in the media. They said we're like, there's going to be less traffic to the Virginia Tech game, and there's going to be more parking spots. And the game started, and there were wide open areas, and there wasn't a ton of fans there. Now, did they get loud? But here's the thing. Those fans, albeit less, when they got loud, that entire place erupted. At the end of the game, there could be 10,000 people screaming in there, but it sounded like 60. But the frustration that I have is fans did not show up in droves for that game. They haven't seen their team in a month. Syracuse fans have not seen Syracuse since the end of September. And now they're not going to see them for 2 more weeks. They were gone for a month. They come home for a game. They're gone for 2 weeks. Then they come back for the last 2 weeks of the regular season. These fans want the team. They want them to be good. They want to see them. And they don't show up.
But to me, though, this is why teams like Michigan, teams like Penn State, teams like Ohio State are always in there. Because when they're at home and they've got over 100,000 crazy fans cheering them on, I mean, if you look, let's just try to put this in perspective. Of the top 5 best atmospheres or toughest places to play in college football for a road team, thinking about the atmosphere and everything for the home team.
Yeah.
3 of the 5 are those 3 teams I just mentioned: Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. It is so difficult to go into the Horseshoe, to the Big House, to Happy Valley, and come out with a win. So anytime you can go in one of those places and win a game, good for you. It's a damn good win. But when you look at and that's the reason why those atmospheres are so crazy is because the fans. I think part of the reason why Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State get ranked as high as they do is because they have crazy fan bases. Why do you think Death Valley at LSU is so crazy? Is it such a hard place to play?
But then
LSU has an amazing fan base.
But then the argument would be with Clemson, Death Valley
again, amazing fan base,
right? But they don't get ranked that high. They don't get regarded that high.
That's the one where they should. They've got 2 national championships in the last decade. Like they should be. I mean, they should be ranked higher than they are.
I mean, Florida State.
They're really the only one. Florida State's got a decent atmosphere. It's not as it wouldn't be as good as going to like Alabama
we
or
could also argue
Georgia.
Miami. We could also argue Miami.
Miami's got some crazy
and
fans
the
too.
vibrancy.
But that's why they're ranked 4th.
But see,
that's why they're in the top 5.
But this is the thing: fan base is great, but they don't play the game. So
true.
To me,
true. But the fans make a difference.
But it's
ask anybody that plays college.
No, they make a difference.
And I know you know that.
They make a difference.
You talk to enough athletes to know that.
But they shouldn't make a difference in the rankings.
Fair.
They make a difference in the game. They shouldn't make a difference in the rankings. Because I can argue that when Syracuse fans actually decide to show up, it is a terror to play in the Dome. You can't hear.
But this is also why I think
you can't
college sports in general have the worst playoff have literally the worst playoff potential, like playoff setup in all of sports. And it's not just college football. March Madness is great, but there's a lot of schools that deserve to be there.
Yeah.
The issue is you've got 120-something teams vying for 12 spots. It's the top, what is that? Top 10% of teams. That is so hard to pick those teams. That's something I think people forget. It is so difficult to narrow 12, like 128 teams down to 12. Figuring out where these teams play, because nobody plays each other. At least in like Major League Baseball and the NFL and the NHL, the teams play each other. They go in based on record.
Yeah.
College basketball is better than college football because you play more games.
Right.
Football is so hard because you only play 11 or 12 regular season games. It's hard because nobody plays each other.
And it depends.
So
I mean, it depends on who you play.
So last year, their situation. How do you put Texas and Penn State in over Florida State? If it was just based on record, you'd have had 4 undefeated teams in there.
Yeah.
Because wasn't there a 4th undefeated team?
It was
Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and I thought there was a 4th undefeated team out of like out of some random conference.
I'm trying to remember that Florida State, yes. Was Ohio State undefeated? No.
Because they lost to Michigan.
So, all right. So, I'll tell you right now.
I feel like the answer is no, but even still.
SMU was undefeated in the conference, but not overall.
Because they lost to Tulane in the championship game.
Yeah. Florida State.
We watched that game. I remember. I was there.
Florida State was undefeated. Michigan was undefeated. Liberty was undefeated.
Okay, so yeah. If you went off purely record, it would have been Michigan, it would have been Washington, it would have been Florida State, and it would have been Liberty. There's your 4.
Yeah.
Based on record.
Let me make sure, because they were 13, and did they lose their bowl game? Hold on, let me just make sure that I'm saying this right.
So I think they lost their bowl game.
So Liberty, yeah, they lost to Oregon.
Okay, that's a fair loss.
Yeah, so
you can't get on Liberty for losing. Because
Liberty.
Now
they were in the New Year's Six bowl because I did
they
that.
Played if they played Oregon, they were in
conversation. They were in the Fiesta Bowl. So because they went undefeated. Yeah, they went 13-0. They beat New Mexico State in Conference USA.
Yeah.
And then they went.
But that's the problem. So that's the problem with college football. You can't just take the 4. Like in that situation, there was 4. It works out fine. But this time around, you're gonna have a few undefeateds, and if we're going strictly based on record, you got all the undefeateds in there. And then how do you decide between the 1-loss teams?
Yeah.
I guarantee you there's going to be more than 9 1-loss teams. Guaranteed. Then how do you decide who gets in then? It's hard. And that's why that's the only reason I think college football sucks in that regard. Is because the playoff format it's impossible. Because in order to get to the way the NFL has it, because the NFL's got 32 teams. The NFL's got 32 teams and 14 make the playoffs. That's 44%.
But
of teams.
You gotta look at the NFL. I will say this about the NFL because Jacksonville's been on the side of this. Jacksonville's won 11 games in a season and not gotten into the playoffs. And then like the Pittsburgh Steelers won their division with less and they got into the playoffs because if you win a division, you get in. So remember that within the last few years, the NFC East had like nobody.
Well, that's fine. Like if you win your division, right. I mean the division's just set up that way,
right? But you think
about that is what it is.
You think about the flaw of that is that a 7-10 team can not only make the playoffs but have a home game, and they can knock out an 11-12 win team in the NFL. I'm with you. I do not believe they should host a game. But if we were to put the same percentage of teams from it that the NFL has the playoffs, into college football, I could be wrong that there's 128. There's 134. 134.
Okay, 134 times 44%. It's 59 teams. We're talking 2 top 25s and then 9 more teams.
But they do get into the postseason. They get into bowl games because keep in
but
mind.
At the same time, a bowl game's not. You just win a bowl game.
Right.
It's not like you're playing for a national championship.
But you think about college football is the only sport in America, collegiate or professional, that has over 60% of teams making it into the postseason. They put in They put in 82 teams of 134. And in seasons, so they promote mediocrity, 6-6. There has been 5-7 teams, and I believe it was Kansas State a few years back that they ran out of spots, and they put a 4-8 Kansas State team made it to a bowl game.
Yeah, like if you're talking about, and I consider postseason to be, you have a chance to play for a championship. A bowl game. I mean, as well as I do. A bowl game, most of them, a lot of times bowl games don't mean anything, right? You win the bowl game, right? You want to win a bowl game, that's great, right? Syracuse might play in the, I don't know, what's the one in Orlando that they play?
There's 4
now. Is that a New Year's Six game?
There's 4 now, but there's the Camping World Bowl, there's the Cure Bowl, there's the one that was called the Cheez-It Bowl, which I don't know what it's called now.
Nah, that one's stupid.
But
what's the big one that they play there?
The biggest one is it would be the Camping World Bowl. Let's
say the Camping World Bowl, which is a decent bowl game.
The later that they are, the more they're like regarded. So like if you play if you play like December 13th, if you play like those first bowl games, it's kind of those are whatevers. But the typical, how I look at it is if you're playing late in December to early January, you made it to a good bowl game. And Camping World is like, I think it was like December 28th.
That's reasonable. So let's just say Syracuse makes it to the Camping World Bowl.
Yeah.
And they play, let's just say, I don't know, who's somebody they play in the Camping World Bowl.
I mean, a matchup that Greg brought up, shout out to Greg. I know you've been watching and listening. Appreciate you, man. He said Syracuse Vanderbilt, and I'm kind of like, I kind of would really like to see that. Yeah.
That one makes sense, right? So let's just say they get matched up with Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they're playing for a national championship or anything. Like, in the grand scheme of things, do they want to win the bowl game? 100% they want to win the bowl game.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, does it mean anything? Not really. You're not playing for a national championship. Even the New Year's Six Bowls in the BCS meant nothing. The only game that mattered was the BCS National Championship game.
Yeah.
Now with the college football playoff, you go to the Rose Bowl. You win the Rose Bowl. You go to the national championship game, you lose. No one's going to care that you won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
The only thing they care about is if you won the national championship. That is why I hate the playoff format in college football. And there's nothing they could possibly do except putting 64 teams in to do that. And you can't. They would have to play too many games.
Yeah.
The NFL, the most games you would have to play to win a Super Bowl in the NFL is 4. Wild card, divisional, conference, Super Bowl is 4.
Yeah.
The way they have it right now, you'd have to play 3. You need to put more teams in. You have to.
Yeah.
Make it so that they're playing 4 games. Which 4 games, if you even out let's just say you even out the field, it's 4 games. That would be 20, 28? No, 32.
Well, if you do it
32.
If you do it right now, so if you look at the format right now. So the format right now, there's 12 in the college football playoff for the first time ever. The top 4 sit out. So the first round is
all right. Let's just say they stick with the top 4 sitting out.
So they play. So 5 through 12 play in the first round. Then those winners play in the quarters. And then there's the semi.
Oh no, yeah, it would be 4.
And then there's the championship. So if you wanted to add
16 teams,
if you wanted to have
games.
16 teams, then you could essentially make it 5 rounds, but it's 4 rounds right now. I think 16
well, you can do
is
20
good.
And make it.
I think
you do 20 and make it
6. Well, you could, but I think 16. When I was looking at 12 and 16, 16 I'm okay with 12, but 16 makes the most sense. But the thing that I don't want to see is no matter how many teams you add, I don't want to see it be the SEC Big Ten championship. That's not
the problem is that's what's gonna but that's why you want more teams. Because then the Big Ten gets exposed, or then the SEC gets exposed, or whoever else.
Or they get 5 or 6 teams in the Big Ten, and then Boise State still suffers, and Memphis suffers, and Coastal Carolina suffers, and Western Michigan. Western Michigan.
Well,
let's just say we have a
16-team playoff this year.
But think about
just for argument's sake.
Western Michigan's having the best season that they've had in a really long time, and no one's talking about them because they're in the MAC. Like, they're not. I mean, nobody's even discussing Western Michigan right now, but that's the problem is like
because they're 5-3.
When you expand,
because they have 3 losses.
Right,
if they had 1 loss, it wouldn't be that bad.
But when you expand, when you actually, that's the whole point, and that's why I believe the SEC is still arguably going to go off on their own, potentially with the Big Ten, and there's going to be College Football Playoff 1, which is SEC plays a tournament, Big Ten plays a tournament, the champions play each other, and then there's going to be College Football Playoff 2, where the other 8 conferences play against each other.
Yeah, we're going to see, but let's just say you put, for argument's sake, let's just say you put in 16, and you put in 2 group of 5 champions. So Boise State would be one of them, and then let's say Army wins the American. Army would be the second one. So there's 2 of your 16.
Yeah.
Let's say Oregon wins the Big Ten. Let's say Georgia wins the SEC. Let's say Miami wins the ACC. Let's say BYU wins the Big 12.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 6. We need 10 more teams. Assuming Indiana loses to Ohio State, I think those 3 teams are in. Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana. I think those 3 teams are in. So there's 3. Texas would get in, even with 2 losses. Tennessee would get in. Tennessee will probably still get in.
Yeah.
Alabama only has to play Auburn left. maybe they squeak in. If they're lucky. I think SMU gets in with 2 losses. We can't forget about Notre Dame. So that's 8. And we need 2 more. So now we're down to LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Iowa State, or Clemson. All have 2 losses except for Iowa State. That scenario, this scenario, Iowa State would have 2 losses actually, because they would have lost to BYU in the Big 12 championship game. That last team left. I mean, you can make the argument for any of them, but let's assume they say Ole Miss, and we need 2, right? We need 2.
So we have Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas, Tennessee, SMU, Ole Miss of at large. The champions, we had Oregon, BYU, Miami, Army, Boise State. Who was the other one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There was
Georgia.
So if we have that, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 I have.
Okay, we didn't put Notre Dame and SMU
Notre
in there,
Dame.
so that's 15.
So that's okay.
Notre Dame and SMU, that's 15.
So then we have PSU, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas, Tennessee, SMU, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
So let's just say, for argument's sake, did you put Ole Miss in there?
Yeah.
Did you put Tennessee in there?
Yep.
Did you put Indiana in there?
Yep. I put Penn State, Ohio State.
Who am I missing?
Reluctantly, but I put Penn State,
Ohio State,
Indiana, Texas, Tennessee, SMU, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. So I would put Clemson in.
Oh, you didn't put Alabama. You didn't put Alabama in there.
Yeah, Alabama. I would put Alabama and Clemson, based on what I'm looking at. Well, no, I would.
Alabama.
I would put Alabama and Clemson. I think Clemson's got an unfair. They have the same record as LSU. Well,
I don't know. They
or
lost
Texas
USC.
A&M.
I think Texas A&M's probably the better team.
So that would be
even though they just got blown out by South Carolina. No. Texas A&M will have lost to Texas. They would have 3 losses. They'd be out. Ole Miss would also have 3 losses. They will have lost to Georgia. So forget it. So pull them out. Clemson. Would they make the ACC? No, they would not make the ACC championship. Assuming they beat
right now.
Pitt, assuming they beat Pitt, I'm in with Clemson.
Yeah, right
Iowa
now the
State
championship would be Miami and SMU, but Clemson.
I would go
shot.
In this scenario. I would pull Ole Miss out. I'd put in Alabama. I'd put in Iowa State, and I'd put in Clemson. I didn't factor in the games they still have to play. So that's factoring in games that still need to be played. That's assuming that the rest of those teams win out, which they except Iowa State. Iowa State will probably still get in even if they lose to even if they were to lose the championship game in the in the Big 12.
And why are you saying Ole Miss would have 3?
Because they got to play Georgia still. They still got to play Georgia. They're not beating Georgia.
So
they play Georgia next week.
And then
they're going to lose to Georgia. If they beat Georgia, then sure. But they're not going to. So that would be. So let's just say that's our 16.
Right.
What's our balance of power? We got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana from the Big Ten. We got Georgia, Texas.
So that's 4.
Alabama. Is that only 3 from the SEC?
Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama.
Oh, Tennessee. So that's 4. So 4 and 4.
ACC has 3.
That's 11. Then the Big 12 gets
Notre Dame.
2.
Notre Dame is independent.
Notre Dame's independent. The Big 12 gets 2.
The Big 12 gets 2, and
Boise
then
State is Boise
the
State
American gets 1,
and Army.
and Mountain West gets 1. So that's 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a decent balance of power. That's telling your group of 5 teams, hey, if you win your conference with a really good record, you're getting in. You're gonna have a chance. You're gonna be in the tournament, right?
Yeah.
They should have a chance to be in the tournament in that regard, right? Boise State could legitimately, and this is the first time I'm ever saying this. This is the first group of 5 team I can safely say this. Boise State could easily win the national championship. They hung in with Oregon in a night game at Oregon. Oregon's not exactly an easy place to play. Early in the season.
Yeah.
Boise State, if you remember back in the mid 2000s, had an undefeated season where they didn't go to the national championship game because they were 2 undefeated ahead of them. And they didn't have a chance to play for the national championship.
And the NCAA told them, just like they told UCF years later, that they could call themselves co-national champions even though they didn't play in the game.
See, I don't get that. I mean, you have co-national championships from like 70 years ago. I don't really get that.
Alabama has some. But there's teams that have claimed themselves national champions that didn't play in the game. But but in the case of Boise State and UCF, the NCAA declared them. So when people were knocking UCF saying you can't call yourself a national champion, the NCAA, it wasn't the NCAA that oversees it said that UCF can call themselves a national champion. So
yes, correct. I mean, did they say it to Cincinnati the one year?
No.
Oh wait, they lost the bowl game, didn't they?
Yeah,
the first year they went undefeated.
Georgia.
That's right. So Boise State, you know what? I want to look up what the odds on Boise State winning the national championship are. Because I think there's a legitimate possibility that it could happen.
I think the most dangerous teams in the college football playoff, if it were to happen today, are Oregon, Boise State, Texas, Georgia, SMU, BYU. And I think Penn State, we saw how they played against Ohio State.
Boise State is plus 10,000.
Murph's going to make a bet.
I low-key want to throw $10 on them.
Yeah.
Would $1,000 if they win the national championship. I mean, I think they could beat just about anybody in the Why is Ohio State the favorite?
Exactly. I would drop my mic, but I love this mic too much.
You want to know something? The very last team with odds?
Go ahead.
Syracuse.
Let's go. How many? What is it?
Plus 100,000.
Let's go. I'm going to put $1 on it.
$1 to win 1,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, though, like Boise State at plus 10,000 or BYU at plus 9,000, it's actually, well, maybe not BYU, but I would bet on Boise State. I might bet on Boise State.
Never.
$10.
Never underestimate the Smurf turf.
I know. Best field in college football.
Never underestimate the Smurf turf. When they put on the jerseys that are the same color as the turf, that's gotta screw with people's brains. But we got to take a step.
Hang on. Yeah, real quick before we do that.
Yes.
So remember how I said Boise State plus 10,000.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put $10 on it.
There you go.
Done. Boise State plus 10,000 odds. I threw $10 on them. If they win the national championship, it's $1,000. I could win that back in one-handed baccarat.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So we will take a step aside for a fast break, and it will be an elongated fast break as we have not taken a fast break yet on today's show. Good morning to Alan. We'll take a step aside here where sports meets life. These college football conversations, there's so many
There's something
things
about them with us. They're good.
Well, I mean, because some of this stuff is just stupidly ridiculous, and then other things you're like, okay, like Texas, if they really think that Texas is not as good as Ohio State, well, that's why they play the game, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. I still think Texas is, they got 2 quarterbacks in Texas, for goodness sakes. We'll take a step aside for a fast break, and when we come back, we'll shift to the NFL, talk about a few NFL things, and then I have some NFL cards to show you from my latest box break, thanks to GG Cards and Breaks, right after this. Here's a message from Renee from Brian's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Brian and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Brian and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Brian's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Brian's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business, had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees, and as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there's something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There's a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really change the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allow customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servomation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water machines, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean-to-cup coffee machines. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. In a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I can tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge, and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We are picture in picture with Murph here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in our DT and Murphy segment that starts off your weeks on Wake Up Call throughout the year. And we have spoken on college football through the first 10 weeks in the college football playoff, taking a look at the NFL. The week that we've had so far, and granted, we still have Monday Night Football to go, but when you look at the NFL this week, here at the midpoint in Week 9, the New York Jets, which we'll talk about in a moment, got a huge win at home over the Houston Texans. They have fired their head coach. Speaking of the Jets, they put their defensive coordinator as the interim head coach. They shifted around some coaching. They brought in Devontae Adams, and they got a win over a good Houston Texans team. The Cowboys continue to reel. Buffalo had an instant classic against Miami in Buffalo. Cincinnati took care of the Raiders. And as far as the Chargers go, they handled Cleveland here and did what they needed to do on the road. And Cleveland, not surprised about that one. Tennessee and New England played to overtime. Washington defeats the Giants in a closer game than maybe some people thought it was going to be, 27-22 on the road at MetLife. Carolina beat New Orleans as New Orleans continues to struggle after scoring 91 points in the first 2 weeks. They have been a shell of themselves. Granted, Derek Carr was injured last week. He did come back in this game, but the team still struggled. Baltimore,
I don't know if you saw it though, but they actually just fired Dennis Allen. Saints.
And the thing is ever since Sean Payton left, I would challenge like anybody in America to be like, tell me who the coach is. It's been such a weird scenario there. Baltimore came into their game against Denver with the exact same record of 5-3, but Baltimore blows out the Broncos. Jacksonville makes a mistake late in the game, and another close game does not go Jacksonville's way.
They're better than their record shows, though.
They are, and we'll discuss that. And then Arizona takes care of Chicago. Caleb Williams got a little banged up in this game. God willing, he'll be okay. Detroit continues to impress as one of the best teams in the NFL. The Rams win in overtime with Seattle, win their game, and Minnesota handles the Colts by my number and my grandfather's number, 21-13. So let's go to your Jets. Let's go to Thursday Night Football. Surprised, not that was another 21-13 game. Surprised, not surprised, thrown off, confused, flabbergasted, excited. Where are you in a game where the Houston Texans, that are they're a good team. They're 6-3 now with this loss. They came in with a even record of 2-2 on the road. The New York Jets, of any team they're going to beat, they beat the Houston Texans, which could be the second or third best team in the AFC. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I think the Jets winning that game had more to do with the horrendous game plan the Houston Texans had as opposed to what the Jets did. Because the way that Houston planned that game was absolutely foolish. You know the Jets are terrible against the run. And I know they fed the ball a lot.
Yeah.
They did. They ran the ball a lot. But why are you not running more than where you are now? I don't get it with them, man. I really don't. That was a horrible game plan by Houston. Horrendous.
Yeah.
But, give the Jets credit. The defense played really, really well. I can't go, too crazy on them because they did what they needed to do. I'm not worried. Ultimately, it's I don't know. I still don't think they're making playoffs. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited. I mean, they have a fairly simple schedule the rest of the way. I don't know. I'm rooting for them. Obviously, they're my team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain.
Well, I'll tell you this. The Jets had one turnover in the game. And C.J. Stroud did not throw a single touchdown pass. So I look at the Jets in that respect. Stroud was only 11 of 30. Probably his worst game. Or close to it. His worst game this season. And then they only lost one fumble, Malachi Corley. Brees Hall fumbled, but
yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I totally forgot about that. That was
he recovered it. He did recover it.
No, he let the ball go walking into the end zone.
Yeah. But I mean,
what are you doing?
Yeah, it didn't. Well, and that's the thing too. When guys let go of the ball when they're crossing the plane, I mean, I hold on to it until they blow the play dead. I don't even know if I would ever drop the ball like that. Will McDonald, the fourth, he recovered a fumble by C.J. Stroud. But
yeah.
I mean, Tank Dell had 126 yards receiving for the Texans. Devontae Adams led the team with 91 yards. He had 7 catches. He was targeted the most by Aaron, his old teammate from Green Bay, 11 times. Had a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 10 targets, 9 catches, 90 yards, 1 yard away from Devontae Adams, had 2 touchdowns. Kenny Yeboah, who I talked to in his recruitment when he was going into college, he got involved. Brees Hall got involved. Mike Williams has been a relative non-factor. Braylon Allen only had one thrown his way. He didn't catch it. And Jeremy Rucker caught one pass for the tight end crew. Conklin also caught a pass, but he lost yards on it. So ultimately in this game, Aaron Rodgers doesn't commit a turnover, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the fumble that they had, they recover one back. So they lose a possession, they gain a possession, and the Jets get out of it alive. I mean, C.J. Stroud didn't have a good game. Aaron Rodgers did, and that ultimately helps to pave the way for the team. The Jets defense continues to do some good things. And
how about Garrett's catch, though?
Garrett Wilson, I said when he was drafted, I predicted he would be a Jet. And when he was drafted, I said he's the number one wide receiver. He's the number one. There's nobody on the roster at that time that was going to be the number one guy. I was like, he's drafted 10th overall. He's the number one wide receiver. And he has not disappointed as a rookie. He has not disappointed as a sophomore. Garrett Wilson is one of the best young receivers in the NFL. And
that catch was just
yeah.
And what's nice about having Devontae now is it takes some pressure off of Garrett.
Yeah.
They're not double covering him anymore. They have to kind of respect him, but also respect Devontae. So they know what they've got to do. But I mean, like I said, the game plan from the Texans was horrendous.
Yeah.
They should have been running the ball a lot more than they did. Why C.J. Stroud was dropping back to pass as much as he did, I don't know. That game was not C.J. Stroud's fault. He didn't look great, but he also didn't look terrible. He didn't have time. There were multiple coverage sacks.
Yeah.
So, you can't necessarily get on him for it. But the Texans are still a good team. Don't get that wrong. They are still a very good football team.
Yeah.
So I would still expect them to make a relatively deep playoff run. And, don't be afraid of C.J. Stroud's cards, people. He's still good. But I'm still excited to see what the Jets can do. I'm not optimistic, but, Aaron Rodgers thinks they can do it. There is an outside chance a 9-8 team makes the playoffs in the AFC. They can go 9-8. Their only real tough game left is Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean, they still got to play Miami twice, who's, better than their record reflects. But their schedule's not hard down the stretch. They ran their gauntlet already. They could easily win. They could maybe lose one or two more games at most in general, whether they were 3-6 or 6-3. If they were 6-3 at this point, I'd be talking about them going 12-5. I would. But who knows? I mean, they got 6 losses. 10-7, I think you still get in. So you could lose one more game. You could lose to Buffalo if it comes to that. But I'm not overly optimistic. But I will say this about your team. I know their record isn't good, and I know they're 2-7 now.
Yeah.
It is not on Trevor. I mean, you talked about this before on the show that there's a culture problem in that locker room, and Doug Peterson said it as well. They are better than that record shows. Trevor Lawrence is not the problem. That team is just, there's something fundamentally wrong with what's going on there. So even if they were to have, and honestly, at this point, they should just keep losing to try and get a high draft pick. Because there's some weapons coming out of this draft class. If they can get this kid from Boise State, that'd be a good offense. I mean, they still got Travis Etienne. I imagine. Is he? No, he's up for a contract, isn't he?
They picked up his 5th-year option, which is next season, and then they have to figure it out.
Oh, it's well, he was drafted the same year as Trevor, right? No, wait.
Yeah, and Trevor's in year 4 right now.
Would be his 5th year.
Yeah.
They could always try to trade him, or they could just have them both and let him walk. But if they could end up with the kid from Boise State, I would say mission accomplished, because that would be huge for Trevor Lawrence. Because this kid could become the next Derrick Henry. Legitimately.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Derrick Henry the last running back to win the Heisman?
That's a good question.
I think so.
I don't think anybody else did. I'm trying to think about it right now. I mean, normally it's a quarterback race.
Normally, yeah.
Derrick Henry. Let me see here. I'm going to look at it right now. So it was
List of Heisman Trophy winners.
So the last one, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Devontae Smith, Joe Burrow. Yeah, he was the last one.
Derrick Henry.
Here's the last one because it's
He'd be the first running back that did not go to Alabama to win the Heisman Trophy since Reggie Bush in 2005.
yeah, because you look at wow, this is crazy.
Because Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry both won at Florida.
Look at these guys that won it. So I just want to do this in my lifetime. In 1985 to now, Bo Jackson, so running back. He played a bunch of different sports, but running back. So running back in 1985, Vinny Testaverde, quarterback.
Vinny Testaverde won the.
And yeah,
No
for
way! I didn't
Miami
know
in
that.
86. Tim Brown, wide receiver in 87. Barry Sanders won in 88, running back. Andre Ward, quarterback of Houston, won in 89. Ty Detmer of BYU won in 1990 at quarterback. Desmond Howard out of Michigan won in 91 at wide receiver. Gino Toretta, Miami quarterback, won in 92. Charlie Ward, quarterback, Florida State, 93. Rashaan Salam won out of Colorado in 94, running back. God bless him, and may he rest in peace. And then Eddie George won in 95, Ohio State running back. Danny Werfel, Florida quarterback, won in 96. Charles Woodson, Michigan corner, won in 97. So that was the first defender to win in my lifetime was Charles Woodson. Then Ricky Williams out of Texas, running back, won in 98. Ron Dane out of Wisconsin, running back, won in 99. Chris Winkie, Florida State quarterback, won in 2000. Eric Crouch, Nebraska quarterback, won in 2001. 2002 quarterback USC Carson Palmer. 2003 quarterback Oklahoma Jason White. 2004 quarterback USC Matt Leinart. 2005 USC running back Reggie Bush. 2006 Ohio State quarterback Troy Smith. 2007 Go Gator Florida quarterback Tim Tebow.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Bradford, 2008 quarterback Oklahoma. Mark Ingram won in 2009, Alabama running back. Cam Newton, Auburn quarterback, won in 2010. Robert Griffin III, Baylor quarterback in 2011. Johnny Manziel, Texas A&M quarterback, 2012. Florida State quarterback Jameis Winston, 2013. Marcus Mariota, 2014, Oregon quarterback. In 2015, Derrick Henry, Alabama running back. In 2016, Lamar Jackson, Louisville quarterback. 2017, Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield. 2018, Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray. 2019, LSU quarterback Joe Burrow. 2020, Alabama wide receiver Devontae Smith. 2021, Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. USC 2022 quarterback Caleb Williams. Last year, LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels in 2023. So in my lifetime, Alabama, Oklahoma, and USC are the only ones to have back-to-back years. It has been overrun by quarterbacks. Secondly, running back. And there's only been one defender that's won in my lifetime, which was Charles Woodson.
Wasn't he the first ever to win?
And in your
as a
lifetime.
defensive player?
And it was also in Murph's lifetime because I'm older.
He's
than
the
Murph.
only defensive player to win. Technically, Ernie Davis from Syracuse played linebacker, but he played both ways.
Yeah,
He is the only defensive player to ever win the Heisman.
And I'm looking at this right now because the Heisman started back in 1935. And there's been multiple fullbacks that won. Felix Doc Blanchard out of Army won in 1945. And why is that important? Because the Army quarterback is in the running right now. And then who I believe still leads the nation in touchdowns. And then Wisconsin fullback Alan Amich, he won it in 1954. There's a couple tight ends that have won it. So this is crazy. Going back and looking through this from 1935 and in 1954, or not 1954. Wait a minute. 1959. That's where I'm supposed to be. In 1959, Syracuse won a championship in 1961. Ernie Davis won as a senior.
Yep.
Ernie should have. Yeah, that's crazy. Ernie should have won it twice. And Don
Tim Tebow should have won it twice.
And Tebow was a finalist 3 times. Don McPherson, he should have won in 1987. Who won in 1987?
Archie Griffin, I think, is
Tim
the only one to
Brown
ever
won
win
in
it twice.
1987.
Yeah, Archie Griffin's the only one to ever win it twice.
Yeah, because Tebow was up for it but didn't.
Tebow finished second, I think, in 2008.
Yeah, Archie Griffin, Ohio State running back, won it in 74 and 75.
No, Tebow came in third in 08.
How about this? Longtime head coach won it as a Florida quarterback in 1966, Steve Spurrier. O.J. Simpson, USC running back, won it in 1968. This is, wow. Some of these names on this, going back here. The Davy O'Brien is what the quarterback trophy is named after. He won the Heisman in 1938 out of TCU at quarterback. Wow. This list is.
I mean, hell, I want Steve Spurrier back as a coach. Realistically, I mean, the man's almost 80 years old. I'll take him back as a coach right now.
He doesn't look like he's 80 though. He must.
No, he does not. He doesn't look a day over 65.
He must have found the fountain of youth and dunked his hand in there a couple times. But let's talk about the Jaguars for a second before we hop out of here. So the Jaguars are a 2-7 team. But they've lost 5 games by 1 possession. So believe it or not, Jacksonville could actually be a 7-2 team right now. They lost their first game of the season to the Dolphins by 3. They lost to the Browns by 5. They lost to the Texans by 4. And they've lost their last 2 games by a combined 8 points. They lost to the Packers after tying the Packers late with 1:12 left. The Packers kicked a field goal 130-27. And an interception thrown in the end zone yesterday prevented the Jaguars from scoring within very good range for the Philadelphia Eagles, marching down the field into Eagle territory. They were in prime position. They lose by 5, 28-23. Trevor Lawrence almost threw 2 interceptions. The third time around, it was an interception. And I mean, I look at this, Murph, and I look at a team, and you said it, and I agree. And I said it yesterday when I was on the phone. I said the Jacksonville Jaguars are such a better team than the record shows you. And when you really break it down, 5 games within 1 possession is a 7-2 to a 2-7 team. The Packers and the Eagles, Packers at home, Eagles on the road, these last 2 games, they have been in it at the end of the game in a late drive. So they have the Vikings, who are a playoff team. They have, in my opinion, they have at the Lions, who are a Super Bowl contender. They have the Texans in round 2. That game's at home, that are a playoff team. At the Titans, who are not good this year. The Jets, we'll see where they're at. The Raiders on the road, who are not good this year. The Titans again at home. And then the Colts on the road, who haven't been that great. So they're tough.
They got a tough schedule.
I mean, they have 3 really tough games in a row. And the Titans always play them tough, and they got to play them twice. But
he might as well just keep losing, dude.
But the next 3 games, Vikings, at Lions, Texans, none of those games are easy. Sam Darnold's having himself a time. The Lions are playing fantastic. And I can't imagine that C.J. Stroud and the crew are going to make too many mistakes on a season that already has them 6-3. So, but I mean, you look at this Jaguars team, and I think the bright spot, but also the frustrating spot, because almost doesn't count, is how close they have been in the last 2 weeks, and how close they've been in 5 weeks to call themselves a 7-2 team, which would actually be leading their division. So, I mean, from a team that's fighting with the Titans to be the worst team in the AFC South to a team that could have been the best team in the AFC South. It comes down to finish. It comes down to health because they've had a lot of injuries. It comes down to leadership. It comes down to a cultural problem. And sadly, this Jaguars team that is kind of being written off and laughed off is not as bad as you think they are. Not talking about you, but talking about people in general.
Mm-hmm. So part of the reason too, though, why I think the Jaguars might as well just keep losing. The two top quarterbacks in this class, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, are going to be highly coveted. People will want them. Jalen Milroe is probably still going to go high. Nussmeier from LSU is probably still going to go high. I'm looking at a mock draft from PFF right now, and Janty from Boise State's projected to go 12th. If you got, let's just say it was just number 2. Right? Let's say you get the number 2 pick, because they're tied for the worst record in the NFL right now. Everybody's 2-7. You'd get number 2. Whoever wants Cam Ward gets Cam Ward. Somebody is desperate for Shedeur Sanders. Maybe it's the Titans. Maybe it's the Giants. Maybe it's the Saints or the Raiders. They're desperate to go get Shedeur Sanders. They give you 2 to 3 first-round picks. Possibly, let's say they give you 3 first-round picks for him. Let's say the Raiders are picking 6th. You could still get Janty at 6. You might even still be able to get Travis Hunter at 6. This is a good draft class. Maybe not so much for quarterbacks, and I think that plays into their advantage because they're not going to need a quarterback, and I don't think there's any chance in hell they move off of Trevor Lawrence, even if they had the number 1 pick. Because I don't think Cam Ward's going to be the guy that, changes a franchise, because Trevor Lawrence clearly was. And I think if you put better pieces around Trevor Lawrence, I imagine if they do that, they will probably fire Peterson. They might fire their GM. They may clean house, which I don't know about you. It seems a little like what they need. But Trevor will still be there.
They already traded away starting defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris, who's a vet, and they traded away a high draft pick that they've held on to forever, starting left tackle Cam Robinson. So in my opinion, they're already showing that they are blowing up whatever they have.
Exactly. And that's fine. I think that's what they need to do, because all of these teams that blow it up usually need to go get a quarterback. They don't. They have the generational quarterback. But the generational quarterback can only do so much. But let's just say you end up with pick 2 or 3. You can still move down because teams, this year is evidence of that. I know the top 3 teams didn't have to trade up. But had the Patriots not needed a QB, they could have gotten 3 first-round picks for number 3. This year's draft, somebody wants Jalen Milroe, they might get 2 to 3 first-round picks if they're picking 3rd. Heck, even if they're picking 4th.
Yeah.
You'll still have a shot at Travis Hunter. You'll still have a shot at Janty. There's other good receivers in the draft. I mean, they took Brian Robinson last year, Brian Thomas, sorry. Brian Thomas, who's been pretty good for them. So he's a good receiver. You still have Christian Kirk, even though I think they can cut ties this year, right?
With Christian,
I think they can cut him and save salary.
He was on
It was a 4-year deal, right?
Yeah, it might be. I know that there's been a restructuring of some contracts, so I'm just going to look.
So they may not save as much.
I'm going to look at an update here on Christian Kirk. So 4 years, $72 million. It runs through the 2025 season. Has an average annual value. So he is still under contract for 2024, 25 right now. 2025, 26 is he is $15.5 million. So yeah, so they can void 2026, 27. So yeah.
Okay, so they need to hold him for one more year.
Yeah, so they
So
can.
if you think about it that way, they have decent pieces around him. They bring in Janty. Maybe they go try and work the defensive market. You get 3 first-round picks for, let's just say you're picking third. You get 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks. You can flip one of those first-round picks to go get somebody.
Yeah.
Go pick up an edge rusher. Go pick up an interior defensive lineman. Go pick up an extra wide receiver. Because you can do that. You'll have the flexibility to do that because you have all this draft capital. When you have all this draft capital as a team with a good quarterback, that could be scary.
Yeah.
Look at what the Lions did when they got Jared Goff. When they trade away Stafford, they bring in Goff. Goff's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
They got 2 first-round picks in that deal, I'm pretty sure. Worked out great for the Rams because they won a Super Bowl. Good for them. But now the Lions could win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Jared Goff has developed into a very good quarterback. I would argue Jared Goff's probably a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. But you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence already under contract. The Lions had all this draft capital. They were able to take Aiden Hutchinson at the top of the draft. They've been able to get Jamison Williams. They've been able to get these guys. If you're able to do that with Trevor, yes, you already paid him. He's owed a lot of money. But if you're able to do that and draft the right guys or trade those picks for good guys, you could easily win a championship within 3 to 4 years. But they got to do it correctly.
Yeah.
I imagine if they're going to go that route, they clean house first.
Yeah, I mean this is okay. So
I'm curious to know what you think about that idea.
I mean, I think you brought up a really good point, and that's the fact that a team that is in a potential rebuild has their star quarterback, so a high draft pick doesn't need to be spent on a quarterback. It can be spent in other areas. And how many teams are in a position that Jacksonville's in that didn't need a quarterback? Normally, when you have a really not great record and you're struggling and you're reeling and you have a cultural problem, normally
Cough, Jets.
there's a dire need for a quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, a great point that you brought up is that Jacksonville doesn't. So,
it makes you desperate.
Right. So
I mean, look at some of the quarterbacks that have been taken in the top 5 recently.
Right. So Jacksonville,
Trey Lance,
right.
Zach Wilson, right?
I mean, Jacksonville not having to,
even Kenny Pickett getting picked in the first round.
Right. So, Jacksonville not having to look for a quarterback is a huge help. I mean, when we look at their free agents coming up here, they have.
I think part of the rebuild, if they're going to try and take Janty, would be trading ETN.
Well, the fact that they have.
And they could probably get, I would think they could get at least a 3rd round pick for him.
Well, I think they can get a 2nd rounder right now because when that dude's
I
healthy,
think you're right. I think I was just being a little bit generous.
I think they can get a 2nd rounder for him. Honestly, the fact that they haven't re-signed Travis Etienne says something to me because they extended Foye Oluokun. Then they locked in Josh Allen. Then they locked in Trevor. And the only other the biggest piece left is ETN, and they didn't do anything with that. He's talented, but he's not the same. He doesn't bring to the culture what some of the other guys do. And Travis, I can imagine if they trade him and they get what they want for him, he'll be happy, they'll be happy type of thing, because I don't know if his energy is good for what they're about to do. The free agents that they have, Tayshaun Gibson.
I can see him in a place like Seattle. That would make a lot of sense for him, I think.
He would be, that would be wildly overcrowded. But I think it would behoove. I mean,
Can you imagine that backfield with Ken Walker and Travis Etienne
and Zach Charbonnet.
and Zach Charbonnet?
You know, I think
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot they had Zach Charbonnet.
But I think for Jacksonville, they're free agents. Walker Little doesn't cost a lot of money. He has played. He's played guard. He's played tackle. He's played all over the place. When I look at their guys, I'm just going to run down who their guys are, and I'm going to tell you keep or not keep. Mac Jones, you can keep him because he's the best insurance policy that they've had, but only if he comes cheap. Right now, he's less than $4 million. Tayshaun Gibson at free safety, give or take. Walker Little, I would say keep. Jeremiah Ledbetter at D tackle. He doesn't cost a lot of money. He's probably a backup. They're going to have to go get some defensive linemen. I was not impressed with their defensive linemen going into the season as far as their starters. Caleb Johnson at linebacker. Again, he's a guy who's can be used in relief. Andre Sisco from Syracuse, their starting free safety. He costs $1.3 million with them right now. The fact that they haven't re-signed him makes me believe that he will hit free agency. Dearness Johnson at running back, give or take. Luke Farrell at tight end.
If they don't bring Etienne back, Dearness Johnson is probably a good backup quarterback or backup running back for them.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing with Dearness. They decided to bring him back this past year, and they also drafted Keelan. They drafted a running back, and I believe it was the fourth or fifth
Has
round.
he played at all?
And he's been hurt. He was actually on, not on, and then so I think he just got activated to practice again.
Okay.
But Luke Farrell, they don't need to keep at tight end. Deshaun Dixon, outside, they don't have to keep him at outside linebacker. Azezi Odomewo at D end, give or take, he's under $1 million. Cole Van Lannon at guard. He has been a guy that's been like a third string guy. Tim Jones at wide receiver, give or take, depending on what they have. He's had some moments. And Patrick Murtaugh at tight end, they don't need to keep. So really, in their free agency is not going to really, I mean, their free agency is cheap this year. If they decide to keep Sisco, that would be the biggest contract. I would say that they should look to keep Sisco, Walker Little, and maybe Cole Van Lannon. And if they want to keep Dearness Johnson, they can keep Dearness Johnson. They don't have to. So ultimately, their free agency isn't going to cost them a lot of money. So I like your idea that if they have a top 5 pick and they know that there's teams that are going to be moaning and groaning for a quarterback, you know, it's New Orleans is not out of the realm of possibility. The Raiders are not out of the realm of possibility. The Browns are not out of the realm of possibility. The Dolphins need to get something. I don't think they're necessarily going to get a quarterback, but it depends on what Tua does. The Patriots are probably they could potentially go wide receiver because they got 2 guys. But the Titans, the Panthers, the Saints, the Raiders, the Browns, that's all the Dolphins, the Giants, those are all potential quarterbacks. And if those some of those teams are below Jacksonville, then it would stand to reason that you have Trevor Lawrence, you trade down, you stay in the first round, you get a bunch of draft capital, you don't have to worry about re-signing expensive guys in the offseason. And I will tell Jacksonville exactly, in my opinion, what they need to do. They need to definitely look at their offensive line. They have to look at their defensive line. The problem with Jacksonville,
I would want to look at a team that's got 2 first-round picks this year.
but this is the right. But this is my
So
problem.
you can get an alignment and I think Genty's got is a perfect fit for them.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that would help out Trevor a lot.
and you know what the thing is, Murph, and I go back to this all the time, and I probably sound like a broken record, but a broken record of a well-played song is the fact of George O'Leary. When I sat with George O'Leary when he was the head coach of UCF, I will never forget what he said to me, and I'll never forget where I was sitting in Rhode Island. He sat down with me, and he said, if you are a head coach of a football team, and you don't understand that you build championships from the inside out, from the trenches out, if you don't know that, then you should pick a new profession. And the Jacksonville Jaguars have a problem with not necessarily talent at the offensive line, but bringing in guys that just don't stay healthy. And it's unfortunate, but think about it. They let Juwan Taylor go after his rookie contract, and he went to Kansas City and won a Super Bowl. Now Cam Robinson's on a playoff Minnesota team. And those were their two guys. That was their right tackle and left tackle, respectively. I definitely feel like they need to. This is how I look at their draft. If they're in the top 5 or wherever they stand when all's said and done, and if they trade anything or whatever, if Travis Hunter is available, then you make a play for Travis Hunter because you want to invigorate your fan base. You want to give them something special. You want to give them a potential generational talent, and that can all happen there. So that's how I look at that piece of it. Then they have to go to offensive and defensive line. Now, I know that there's some guys out there that are starters, that offensive linemen that they could go out and try and get. I know that Tyron Smith of the Jets.
I don't know if you
right.
want him though.
Right. And that's
he's well past his prime.
Right. But he's going to be a free agent. Zach Martin's going to be a free agent from Dallas. And there's also some guys that are on teams that are obviously running the ball well. Like there's going to be some availability with Ravens offensive line. So if I'm Jacksonville, your offensive and defensive line is suspect. You have good hybrids. Your Josh Allen, your Trayvon Walker, who played 3 different positions in college. You have that. You have Foye Oluokun, who is a leader. I don't know how much time he wants to spend with this, and I don't know if he may ask for a trade after signing a 3-year extension, which I would totally understand if Foye did that, because Foye is at a point in his career where you want to be a captain on a team that has a shot at the playoffs. But looking at the bare bones of this team, Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Tank Bigsby, who's ran well, Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas Jr. When I look at
the core is decent.
Evan Engram, there's a lot to be said about what they have. And there's guys that are really good for the locker room that are not in a contract year, like Chad Muma. There's guys on this team that are assets that people don't talk about enough, like Dewey and Muma on the defensive side of the ball. So you have good character guys. You have good people to build around, pieces like Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen and so on and so forth. But they have to hone in on the offensive and defensive line. They have to scout well, and they have to go and get a mix of veterans and rookies on the defensive and offensive line. But if they are in the top 5 and Travis Hunter's there, I'm okay with them taking that.
So you know how I said before that you might want to look at a team if you were to be in a quarterback spot, that look for a team that's got 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Not a single team currently owns multiple first-round picks this year.
Yeah, because that only happens in trades, and Chicago had it last year because Carolina was stupid.
Well, that's besides the point.
So
Carolina may end up with the number 1 pick right now, but if you want to know something crazy, you know who currently owns the number 2 pick?
Carolina should have had the number 1 pick 3 years in a row.
You know who currently owns the number 2 pick, though? The Jacksonville Jaguars. That is beyond crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But the other issue is, let's just say the draft order as it currently sits is what it is. Patriots, Jaguars, Saints, Panthers, Browns. Patriots aren't getting a quarterback. Jaguars aren't taking a quarterback.
Right.
The Panthers and Saints are going to want to come up if it stays like this.
Well,
so will the Raiders, who would be at 6.
The Panthers, the Saints, the Raiders, the Giants, maybe the Dolphins, the Titans.
The 2 teams in the best position to do it are going to be New Orleans and Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to put
if you're the Patriots and if you're the Panther, if you're the Patriots and you're the Jaguars, both of you are trading down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I mean, the Jaguar, I imagine the Patriots would want to trade with the Saints more than they would want to trade with the Panthers. because they probably want to stay ahead of Jacksonville because you assume Jacksonville will probably go down
Yeah, but you have to think about it like
because they
this.
probably want Travis Hunter.
Who's the team that you can now? Granted, they have a new GM, but who's the team that's been the dumbest in the draft recently? The team you can take
Carolina
advantage of the
Panthers.
most is Carolina.
Yep.
That's the team you can take
That'd be
advantage of.
hilarious.
You know,
I could see Carolina ending up with Jalen Milroe.
you can take advantage of Carolina. You can take advantage of Cleveland. You can take advantage of the Raiders right now. You can take advantage of the Giants right now. So
I don't think you'd take advantage of the Giants as much
I think you can take advantage
because
of
I think the Giants, in theory, could live another year with Daniel Jones. I could see the Giants signing.
I think
Sam
if the
Darnold
Giants live
and
another year with
keeping-
Daniel Jones, I
I could see them signing Sam Darnold and having him compete with Daniel Jones for the starting job.
Uh,
They don't need. I don't think the Giants necessarily have to take a quarterback this year.
I think if the
If
Giants,
it's there, they need to do it. But if it's not,
if the
if the
Giants
value's
spend
not there, I wouldn't do it.
if the Giants spend another year with Daniel Jones, there are going to be some Giants fans that become Jets fans. So like I can't see that sticking around the way that it is. But if I want to look at where things are at right now, I mean,
Jets are picking 10th, by the way. There's an outside chance they may want to take a quarterback,
yeah, I mean, if I'm
depending on what
Jacksonville-
Rodgers does.
if I'm Jacksonville and I stay where I'm at, I'm calling Carolina and I'm saying, give me your first round and give me your second round. Like I'm saying,
I want their first rounder next year too.
I'm saying if I'm Jacksonville right now,
1-2-1.
I'm saying Jacksonville, and I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying I'm calling Carolina, who came into the league the same year as Jacksonville, by the way, at 95. I'm calling Carolina, and I'm saying, I'll give you 2, you give me 5, or 4 right now. So I'm saying I'm at 2, you give me your pick, you give me your second round pick, which puts me in the top 4 of the second round, and you give me your first round next year, and then you give me, what is the line from draft day? And then you give me that kicker.
You give me David goddamn Putney just because I feel like
you give me David Putney because I feel like it. But like, I mean, if I'm Jacksonville right now, I have Carolina, Cleveland, Vegas.
I think you got to kick him back a third. I think you'd probably have to kick him back your third round pick if you do it like that because it only is 2 spots. You want that extra first round pick next year.
See,
but I think if you're going to get that, you got to convince Carolina. And if you do that, you flip them back your third this year, and it's not the end of the world.
I don't know if you have to do that. I think you could. I think if it's Carolina, I think if I could say swap first with me, give me your second, I'll give you my fourth. Because if I'm Jacksonville right now, looking at what I have, I don't need 1 offensive lineman. I need like 3. I don't need 1 defensive lineman. I might need 3 in their current setup. So if
I think
I'm
you got to find a
Jacksonville-
way to get a pick next year.
Like and they can, but if I'm Jacksonville in this moment, and I'm not saying that they don't get a pick next year, but if I'm Jacksonville, I need to I need to essentially redo my entire offensive line, redo my entire defensive line.
Yeah.
Because I cannot put Trevor in the place that I keep putting him in, and I absolutely cannot have a defensive line now they don't have Roy Robertson Harris. So who said one of the greatest things that I've ever heard by a D lineman? He said, "Stop the run, go have fun," and I'll never forget that. But when I see what they're doing, getting rid of Cam Robinson and getting rid of Roy Robertson Harris, they're admitting the fact that they're blowing it up. And if they're blowing it up from the inside out, they have to go to that. But to the fan base, they cannot draft unless he is like a star, world-renowned, once-in-a-lifetime offensive tackle. They can't do that in their first round. They have to go splash, and then they have to go offensive and defensive line. But here's my issue. If they don't get draft capital where they have 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, I don't want, you can go draft a lineman in the 3rd and 4th round, but if I'm Jacksonville, I need to have draft capital in the 1st and 2nd round that's going to get me offensive and defensive linemen that are going to come in and play like they've been in the league for 4 years. And I don't know if you can do that in the 3rd and 4th round. You might, but they have to be really good about free agency. And I just looked at free agency, and there's a few names that I like, and there's more research that I need to do. But I'm not sold that free agency is going to save this team on the offensive and defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to build an offensive line through free agency, though.
Right.
It really is.
Which is why teams in their inaugural year, when they're expansion teams, the Houston Texans, when everybody has to put players up for expansion, the Houston Texans, by name, if you go back and look at David Carr's offensive line, he's got a bunch of guys on that line that are good, but they had never played together. And he got sacked 92 times as a rookie. So you can't just go find veterans and then plug and play them all together. So Jacksonville is going to have to draft offensive and defensive linemen, and they're going to need high draft capital to do that. So whoever they're working with, they might have to work with a team and then work with another team. Like, I work with this team and I trade down, but I stay in the first round. Then I work with this other team who gives me this. So now I have 2 first-round picks. And then I don't care if they give up round 5, 6, 7. I don't care if they give up capital back there. What I care about is Jacksonville working with multiple teams, being top heavy in the draft, to have as many picks as they can get in the first 4 rounds.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%.
Because their free agency is not going to cost them a lot of money. So Jacksonville will hopefully have a lot to work with in free agency, but I don't want them to have to rely on doing what they've literally done for multiple years now, which is go find veterans and pay them a ton. They paid Andrew Norwell a ton of money. 2 years later, he's not on the team. So, I mean, for what they're paying
the only guy that might want a contract is ETN. And if he wants a contract, I would just trade him.
Right, but the thing about ETN is they don't have to give him a contract this year.
You're right.
There's nobody currently a free agent in Jacksonville that is going to cost them a lot of money outside of what I believe Andre Sisco might ask for.
Well, they also, I mean, if they could give ETN a contract if they had to, but I don't think they should.
But with the way that this team is set up right now, and with the way Tank Bigsby's playing, and where you could be drafting, and who could be available, there is no reason why you're going to pay Travis Etienne double-digit millions of dollars.
I would trade him. I'm telling you right now, I would trade him.
I would trade him.
I would.
I'm totally fine with them trading Travis Etienne because he's talented, but the way he is, I'm trying to dance this thing, but his energy in the locker room reminds me of Jalen Ramsey energy.
Oh boy.
So
you don't want that.
He's talented, but I think that he thinks that he should be the star of the team. And where he is right now, what he's done on the field, and the fact that you have a long runway of 1.5 years to trade him, go get draft capital for Travis Etienne, and then trade down and get more draft capital. And now we're working with something, because Tank Bigsby, I have no problem keeping him, and his personality is very different. And Tank Bigsby is a workhorse. Tank Bigsby is a guy who's critical of himself. Like, I've interviewed Tank multiple times. I like Tank. And not that I don't like Travis Etienne, they're just different. And if I'm a general manager building a team, I'm okay building around Tank's energy more than I am building around Travis's energy, because it could get annoying. So I like Tank, and they can go get a running back in the draft. Keep in mind, running backs always fall. So I think they're in good shape in their back.
Janty won't.
I think they're in good, but how far? When you look at the top 10, if he could fall out, if Jacksonville can somehow pull in a top 15 pick and then stay in the top 5, stay in the top 10, and have 2 picks in the top 15, they don't have to necessarily spend that pick on him. They're not going to have to spend a top 5 pick on him. So I think.
But if there's anyone to do it with other than Travis Hunter, it would be him. Like, he's probably the best running back that you could take in the draft since Saquon.
But if and when they make a decision to, like, if they were to go after it right now, the way that the draft is set up, New England, we'll see. They could take it, but it depends on where they drop to. New Orleans is not going to take him, I don't think. Carolina's not going to take him. Cleveland's not going to take him. Vegas is probably not going to take him. The Giants could take him. But no, they won't, because they drafted Tyrone Tracy, and he's been playing really well. The Dolphins
I love Tyrone Tracy, man.
The Dolphins aren't going to take him. The Titans aren't going to take him. The Jets aren't going to take him. The Cowboys are too stupid to take him. The
Cowboys might.
No, the Cowboys are too stupid to take him. They had Derrick Henry on they're too stupid to take him. The Colts are not going to take him. The Bengals are not going to take him. Seattle's not going to take him. The Rams have Kyron Williams. They're not going to take him. Tampa's not going to take him. San Francisco's not going to take him. Chicago's not going to take him. So Jacksonville could very well get draft capital and get a pick in the top 20, and they're not going to have to worry about it. Denver might take them. Arizona might take them. That's 19 and 20. So if Jacksonville can get another pick in the top 20, they most certainly, in my opinion, I don't want to say most certainly, they better than
I saw a mock draft that had them going 12, but I don't remember to what team.
Yeah, I would. Well, if it was right, it would be Indy. But in how I'm looking at this draft, there is a good chance outside of New England trading down and doing it, there's a good chance that Jacksonville could draft someone in the top 5 and then come back in the top 15 to 16, 17, 18 and still draft him out of Boise State and be okay. Jacksonville needs to get 2 first-round picks. I don't care how they do it, but they need to do it. As long as it doesn't sound like Josh Allen or Trevor Lawrence, which it won't. But Travis Etienne, he has a lot of value right now. And if I'm Jacksonville, I'm not trading him for 1 pick. I'm trading him for
22. I see him going now.
I'm trading him for multiple picks. Yeah, exactly. Out of the top 20, which is why Jacksonville needs to get a top 20 pick, and they're going to be fine.
It's not the same mock draft. Here it is.
But there's 2 teams that would take him.
Here's the PFF mock
Denver
draft I was
could take
looking
him
at.
and Arizona could take him because Arizona and Denver don't have a consistent guy.
Here. So PFF actually had him going 12 to Dallas. But you're right. I don't think Dallas is smart enough to do that.
They're not smart enough to do it.
They have the need.
But they're not smart enough, Murph.
I don't think Jerry Jones is going to waste a first-round pick.
Let me just say this to you. Okay?
Well, it would be wasting it to him.
Let me just say this to you before we get into cards for a second. Let me just throw this at you for a minute. Dallas they had Ezekiel Elliott. They let him go to let Tony be the starter for 1 year. Then they let Tony go to bring back Zeke Elliott. You let your ex-girlfriend go, and then you told your fan base that your ex who was cheating on you and throwing things at you and screaming at you in the middle of Walmart, you brought her back. And let me say something about ex-girlfriends. There is no woman on this planet that wears more half shirts than Zeke Elliott. So, you let Derrick Henry go to Baltimore so that you could bring back Zeke Elliott. Let me be clear. Dallas is too stupid to draft a good running back. And that's because Jerry Jones can never admit he's wrong. And if you've ever been around a narcissist, you know that nothing good comes from those relationships.
Literally, Jerry Jones is the reason why the Cowboys have struggled so much.
Jerry Jones is the reason why they didn't have 5 straight Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson, in my opinion, would have won 5. He had 3. I think he would have won 5.
Yeah.
I think that they would have owned half a decade. But what do I know? I mean, you can trust me or you can trust Jerry Jones. We'll take a step aside for a fast break really quick because we do have to get these in, and then we're going to show off our cards, and then your boys got to get to Fran Brown's press conference. So let's do this right after that. Right after this, you'll hear our sports card show and tell. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638 1234 or order online at pizzamanbeville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. They are the one-stop sports card and trading card shop. If you've never collected before, well, you're about to open yourself up to a whole new world of greatness. And if you have collected, you're about to find your new favorite store. GG Cards and Breaks. Hockey, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, Disney Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. They have the binders that you need. They have the sleeves. They have the top loaders of all different sizes, the one-touch cases, the boxes to put them in. You would walk in there as someone who's never collected before and walk out of there like somebody who knows exactly what they're doing. The boxes and the packs change all the time, so you never know what you're going to get, so you got to get in there today. They have a ton of new graded merchandise that's back from PSA. Go check that stuff out. And they have Kyle McCord and Aronde Gadsden cards galore. All different ones, rare ones, signed. So you need to get out to GG Cards and Breaks Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6, and on Sundays from 10 to 5, 639 Delmar Place at Syracuse, New York, which is a perfect segue to what we call Sports Card Show and Tell. And Murph and I have cards to show. And I just did a GG Cards and Breaks box break. And that box break was 2023 Panini Select Football. And I got some good stuff.
I want to see that.
The best card that I got was in the first pack. So, Murph, would you like to go first?
I could.
And then I will show off what I got.
I actually ripped I ripped some cards yesterday. I'll show those at the end, but some stuff I picked up. I played a poker game with some friends down in Quakertown at a card shop. So picked up some stuff from the guy that runs the shop. This is a really nice National Treasures Devontae Smith RPA. It's actually a glove patch auto that's numbered to 15.
That's awesome.
Perfect timing for this. A Saquon Barkley Rookie of the Year Contenders out of 25. We got a National Treasures Saquon RPA out of 25 as well. You'll like this one. This is a clearly Donruss rated rookie auto numbered to 25 of your boy, Trevor Lawrence.
Trav. I have that card, but I don't have an autograph.
Yeah. These are some cheaper slabs. I got a Christian Vaccaro, Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome Sapphire. Actually, no, it's Green Atomic, first Bowman auto. Was a good prospect, had a bad year, so I took a little chance on him.
Yeah.
582 Montgomery Club, Bobby Witt Jr. rookie.
Nice.
We got a Topps Now, Shohei Ohtani rookie. Battling the MVP. And then this was just a Origins Malik Neighbors that I got in a trade. And then I ripped some 2024 Score.
Oh, I did that too.
These are all going to get sent out for grading. We've got Malik Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Also Malik Neighbors. Hang on, I'm putting these things out of order. I got to keep them in order for PSA.
Yeah.
We got Marv. Then we got Drake May Potential.
Yeah.
And then this is an interesting one. I found these in Target. Actually, sorry, Walmart. And I wasn't sure what they were. It was a Score. It was like a Halloween type design thing.
Yeah.
They actually got some cool cards. It was cool design. Drake May.
Yeah.
That's with the bats. We got Malik Neighbors with the pumpkins.
Yeah, the face ones were like the ones that they were showing were the ones that were coming out first. Was like just their face.
Yeah. Yeah, Brock Bowers.
Brock. I like Brock.
Bo Nix.
Oh, I like Bobo. It's my dude.
And Michael Penix Jr.
All right. That's another one of my dudes.
So those are pretty cool. And then I just picked up a couple other cards that I'm going to grade. Just a Joe Burrow base prism, Tyrese Maxey silver rookie, and an Optic Fanatics box Tyrese Maxey.
Nice.
Those are all good cards for my area. Well, the Maxies are at least.
Yeah, I opened up Score. I don't know where the heck I put it now that I'm thinking about it, but I did open up Score.
The Halloween packs were annoying because there were 40 packs of 3 cards, and I had to use a scissor to cut them all open because they wouldn't open.
Oh, yeah. No, some of them are not.
And it was so annoying.
Gentle. So this is from the most recent box break that I did. You can watch it on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT. It will also be added to YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. And if you'd like to see all of our card breaks, you can go to YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and go to the card break playlist, which is all presented by GG Cards and Breaks, our sports card shop of choice. My rookie of Bryce Young.
Nice.
My red, white, and blue refractor die cut of Tyler Scott, rookie. You can see
that's
it's all
sweet.
Cut here. I'm keeping the best ones for last. This was in my first pack refractor rookie card, black jersey of Tyson Bagent. Then I got Jahmyr Gibbs rookie card.
That's a good one.
Puka Nakua's rookie card.
He got ejected yesterday for one of the stupidest little
throwing a punch.
A weak little punch.
Yeah. Select certified rookie card of Dalton Kincaid,
Nice.
which I may grade this one. It's a little bit off center. And then these are my best. This is a red, white, and blue refractor die cut rookie card of Jordan Addison.
That's a good one.
And probably the best I've ever pulled from a Panini Select up to this point. A die cut, the one that's cut on the sides. So it's like boxy, cut on the sides. Red, white, and blue refractor rookie card of Puka Nacua.
Nice.
So this was in the first pack that I opened.
That's sweet.
So Puka and Jordan Addison, really good. The box was good.
Hey, I got a red, white, and blue Puka too. Where is it?
There you go.
It's not die cut though.
Yeah,
I'm sending it to get graded.
Yeah, this one, I was a little concerned about one of the parts, but I actually think that I might send this one to get graded. Oh, and I did find out that, well, I'm not going to, you know what? I'm not going to release it because I want to show you guys, but I did have 4 cards graded. One came back a 10. And LeBron James, I will not tell you what grade it got yet, but LeBron James is back. So we will find out all of that probably next week because I'm going to GG Cards and Breaks and they have my cards. So, yeah. But I got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good score stuff. And like you, I have a lot of good rookies from Score that I may send to get graded. I also didn't show these, but I may get these graded because I was going through my stuff and I have Jerry Stackhouse. I have his rookie. And then I have in very, very good shape Toronto Raptor and NBA champion rookie card of Chris Bosh. So I may get Bosh graded.
Why not?
I found him around the time that I found LeBron. So,
I'm trying to think if I have anything old in here that I'm sending.
And I have this one that's probably going to get graded. Please don't pay attention to the price that's on here or whatever's written on here. But I found my Ray Allen rookie card.
There you go.
So I did find some oldies here. And I am once again so very happy that I have this card because, you know, I have a soft spot for the Yankees for my grandpa and my dad. And I love my Diamondbacks. I am still so happy I got my PSA 10 Bowman first Arizona Diamondback Jazz Chisholm autograph. So,
well, you know, I'm happy that. Hang on, wait. You know, I'm happy about this.
Yankees lose.
Nice. Very nice, Murph. Very nice. So angry at those Yankees.
lose.
So hateful.
Sorry, not sorry, Yankee fans.
And by the way, folks, for those of you that are looking, I picked up a lot of stuff that I just, you know, banked on here. My JJ McCarthy, to once again show this one, the autograph 10. He doesn't sign them all with a smiley face. That one is. My Cam Ward auto. My Michael Penix auto.
You're ahead of the game here, man.
My Bo Nix auto that's numbered. That's a short. And then this one that I bought it, I believe $41 that I checked recently. And this could be very well a $200 card. It is my numbered to 25. So this is to 25 in the world. My National Treasure auto patch, Larry Bird.
Nice.
And so I have been stacking up and preparing for what is to come. And I'm anticipating Cam Ward definitely right now, Bo Nix right now, and then Michael Penix and JJ McCarthy. I'm hoping for their future, but I think that there is a market for a lot of this stuff. And you know, I might get my die cut sauce graded. And
there definitely is. I mean, but if you're anything like me, you got to sell them before they go down the tank.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson, thank you very much for that.
I think my guys are trending up, and
I think I'm gonna cut bait on my Richardson stuff.
Yeah, well,
if I can get rid of them.
I know that
I want to get rid of the downtown.
Stroud,
I'm done with
now
it.
I have a bunch of CJ Stroud, and one of my CJ Strouds that I wanted to get graded from a while ago, that also came back. So Stroudy is I got some Stroudies for y'all if you're looking for Strouds, which you should be. But with that being said, Murph, I hope that you sell well on your Anthony Richardsons.
I hope so too.
And I hope that
and remember, if you're in the Poconos this weekend, Saturday September 9th, the Pocono Show, the very first edition, 10 to 4 at Jackson Township Firehouse. Come see us.
Yeah, of Murph's show. So make sure you go out, support Murph, show him some love November 9th, and enjoy some sports card buying, selling, and trading for DT and Murphy. College football, NFL, sports card show and tell. Thanks to GG Cards and Breaks and all you fantastic, wonderful people for watching and listening. Murph and I will talk with you next Monday, and I look forward to it. Murph, thanks as always.
Yes, sir.
That coming from Brendan Murphy here on the show. DT and Murphy starts off your week on Mondays here on Wake Up Call. Facebook.com, YouTube.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com, WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. You can find us. You can find all of these channels by going to our website, WakeUpCallDT.com, and they'll all be there for you. So if you're on our website, you can click to listen to any one of our channels from the website itself on YouTube, Facebook, and Podbean. Big time thanks to Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, as well as Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube for carrying us. All you got to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And of course, a big time thanks to Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Club, Servo-Mation, Mother's Cupboard, Avicoli's Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Fire Pit Barbecue and Saloon, Chick-fil-A Cicero, GG Cards and Breaks, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Great Lakes Honda City, Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world, Brian's Landing, and we are proud to be the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins, Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, and your Binghamton University Bearcats. Find the Dolphins every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call, the Bearcats every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can find all of our content by going to youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find the Lemoyne playlist, the BSC Syracuse playlist, and the Binghamton playlist. For more information, go to LemoyneDolphins.com, Syracuse.bscbobcats.com, and BinghamtonBearcats.com. With that being said, thanks to Murph, thanks to you. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. God bless, no stress, do your best. Have a tremendous day, and shout out to the Syracuse Orange once again for an incredible moment in the Dome for my hometown.